he actually signed it. And then I just took that as a PDF, built it into a PDF, and he massaged the photos.
Well, at first when I saw that, I thought somebody did a really nice charcoal.
Yeah, exactly.
And
That's what it looks like.
so it's a good one.
Yeah.
Carmel went down one year, a couple of years ago. All right. Oops. I didn't ask him how to do it. I just wanted to Photoshop.
Trustee signed that. I didn't see it. I didn't check it.
Contact list, and copies out, so you want to share your contact information.
So how soon do the people have to get their vote in if they do it on the internet? I would say that somebody said that members could vote that way.
Oh, I didn't know that. I got the emails this morning. I have 2 ballots came in email.
Okay, then that's, if they're not, my attitude is they needed, we probably should, to be official, say, here's the, when they gotta be in by. My attitude is they should be in by like 8 o'clock the morning of, because we gotta have time to process it. So take those 2. Do you have those?
I just read my email, which is SARA Conference, and got 2 ballots.
Did you write down what the votes were?
Yeah, I just wrote down what the votes were.
Right, I just want to know what the votes, who the votes went with. So what I would ask you to do,
Hint, there wasn't much from Jeff Blickman, because when he sends in a ballot, he always puts his name right in the middle of it. So
Okay.
we know for sure, there's no way to prove it all.
well,
So anyway, he did not vote.
do me a favor and put those 2 sets, can you put those 2 sets of votes on that? So we can include it with the count this morning?
Okay, we actually need 2 ballots.
Well, did they, I was hoping they voted so much the same, but here's a second. If you could fill those in, that would be great.
Okay.
That way I can include those with the regular votes and just put on the top, is their name on here? Yeah, their name's not on here, so.
Make sure I get it exactly as they requested. Okay,
Sure.
now, what do we do for somebody that wanted Tom Crowley? Check it anyway? That's what they said.
We're gonna take it as we can.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So I mean, that's gonna happen. Okay. Robert. No, I want to push for that because it'll make life so much easier.
Take the list of you're a bad.
But what I'll do is I'll bring it up during the UCC this morning.
Kind of like a 2-meter fence. Make it harder.
Hey guys, before we get started, just a couple of notes. Look, there should be a raffle ticket in your name badge. If you do not have one, please see me and I can get you one. I've got the bucket over here.
Can we get 2?
They're all my number in there, so I'm not worried about anything. And the other thing is that you need to make sure that before you depart, you go to the front office here and pay your housing. There will be that's totally separate from the conference, and that needs to be done. Don't everybody go at once to overwhelm her. Just make sure you get your housing paid. and get that taken care of. Because we don't want the club to have a bad name. And the other thing was the housing, I know that some of you didn't end up with the greatest, there was a couple people in here that didn't end up with the greatest housing situation, and I apologize because I had very little to say with that. And there's just not much housing out here in the middle of nowhere. So appreciate your taking what you got and making it work. Okay.
For reference, the nut bin's not a bad place.
There's another page.
Yes.
Oh, there's only 3 of us, yeah.
I've actually got a raffle ticket that was on after we filled up the name badges. And I've got the other side of it, and I don't know if somebody's missing one, but I don't know where. So that's all.
Tom, I'm gonna look for it. I think I got it in my backpack. Okay, let's get started. We're gonna do the election this morning. The one note I wanted to point out to all of you is that Tom Crowley is not running for the position, so don't vote for Tom Crowley, even though it'll be hard not to. And that's the only change to the ballot. But I just wanted to announce it. We didn't have time to print out new ballots. What was that for?
Right.
So you're gonna explain one,
Explain one what?
why I'm not running?
Yes, because Tom is going to take a position. I'm going to appoint him as I don't forget the name, but it's what the president can do.
Advisor to the president.
Advisor to the president, correct. Because I don't want to lose his experience.
I thought it was for his emails.
Those two, but, yeah. So that's the only change to the ballot. Of course, write-ins, please. And then it's from 9 to 9:30 is the election. That's the only change that I need to mention. And I've identified, I have 3 people, Ed, Wayne, and Jay. I might have asked somebody else, but those were the 3 when I walked in the door. So they'll be counting the votes for us. We did get 2 votes via the internet, and Bruce is taking care of that. So I'll go ahead. I don't know, are we supposed to supply writing utensils? I think everybody should have their own.
They were in your kit.
Yeah, everybody have their passport with them?
Oh, those were not for this. Those were just in general. That was kind of like a nice, yes, David?
Yeah, I sent a ballot in by email.
Uh,
Are you gonna count those or?
When did you do that?
I
Who did you send it to?
think it's, I guess it's the secretary.
Do you
Because I didn't get yours. I had got my email this morning. I've been watching my email carefully. So if you sent it to secretary at SARA, should have gotten it.
Do you mind doing it again?
Okay, because it's known that I did not get the email for one reason or another, fill out another ballot.
Do you mind?
No, I'm not filling out that, I just want to make sure if you got it, then I won't, if we vote against that.
No, but I mean,
It's known that we did not receive your ballot. Something went wrong
David,
with the email.
he checked his email this morning. Okay. That's right, so, let's see, let's go ahead.
You want me to pass out one side, want to pass out the other or something?
How do you handle hanging chads?
We don't have any chat.
Oh, okay.
Nobody has.
So we don't have to hang them.
Yeah, we don't have chat.
Yeah, we had somebody in chat, we went out there, we want to hang them. Okay, we got everybody now? You got that.
Actually, if you tell me, I'll remind you today, if you're helping sure I bring you a bag of cat.
A bag of chat?
Bag of cat. I'm the person who had one of these approved puppets. Chad, Chad container on the.
No, there's just spaces for writing, there should only be 2 spaces for writing. Yeah, unless you want to put it right.
I thought there was only two directors.
Okay, so we got these turned in, and I haven't filled out mine yet. Oh, that must be mine right there. This is the extras.
Ken, how many director positions are there? There's only 2 open, right? You say
I believe there's 2 director and 2 director at large.
on the instructions, you got both for 3 directors. So it should only be 2 with Tom gone. right?
Gary? Yo.
What?
All you gotta do is tell people to vote for
Yeah,
2, so
please.
3.
Vote
And
for
take
2.
Tom's.
We'll take,
Oh, how do we tell which one was
Only
yours?
2 votes, not 3.
right, it should be 2 director, 2 director at large. Because there's 4 directors and 4 director at large, and we flip them over every other year.
What's up? Ken?
Well, we're only supposed to have 2 director at large.
And it says 3, so.
And 2 directors, because there's 4 of each. and
See if that's them
every
right there.
year, half of them change.
That would be that. That is.
things appropriate for your age group and audience and help you out so you're not making the whole set of slides yourself. You got help. And John is going to do that one. John is also going to do a little investigation on possible videos that are made and YouTubes. Okay, and then we had an issue come up that Ken started with there. But anyway, Tom Crowley wanted to be removed from the ballot. And the reason for that is he thinks he can help the organization a lot more as an advisor to the president. So he's now an advisor to the president, and everybody agreed that that was a workable arrangement. Tom even stepped out of the room for the discussion so we could say anything bad about him we wanted. Wouldn't have mattered anyway, but anyway, he did step out. Okay, let's see, so that was approved. Okay, then, okay, one of the things, was that we were saying that, we were to remind people this morning that write-ins could be put in there for, board of director or any of the positions actually. Okay. Ken would like to try a new thing on the Western Board Conference of having a board meeting there, because they've been kind of the stepchild of SARA in some ways, and we want them to feel more part of it. So we have a board meeting there as well, so people on the East Coast like me that won't be able to travel there more than likely will check in by telephone, and we can still have a conference board meeting that's proper. And we don't have to do any amending to our procedures because the president can call a meeting of the board at any time he sees it necessary. So he's just going to see it necessary at the Western Conference. And then, of course, the whole board will check in at that point the best we can. So anyway, we're going to try that just for 1 year and see if it actually works and if anything happens. And if it proves unworkable, it'll be discussed at Green Bank next year, but we're hoping that proves workable and leaves the Western people feeling more part of it. Okay, then let's see. Can't read my own writing. Motion to. Okay. I actually put forth a motion to move to have the board of director meeting, a second one at Western Conference. Charles seconded, and we voted on it to make sure, although the present procedures do allow it, so it really didn't need a vote. Okay, so 2017, March, Western will be the first trial of that to see how it works. Okay, we had a little discussion with Bogdan that was just strictly advisory about how to handle some of the things related to RASDR, but it was strictly advisory, so there's no need for anything significant in the meeting at that point. Okay, at that point, thought we were done with business. I made a motion to adjourn, and Charles Osborne seconded the motion, and everybody was ready to go get beer or coffee or whatever. So that is what happened at the meeting last night. Any corrections there, Ken?
Well, the only thing I wanted to amend that I neglected to mention, and I'm a big fan of this because I like to come in a day early. Instead of starting on Sunday, we'd like to try starting on Saturday, and then we have a better chance we can get into our rooms because there's sometimes that conflict with the Star Party people.
What's happened is that Sue Ann in June and early July has got teacher conferences that take priority. So she has moved StarQuest out to New Moon in July, which is somewhere around the 20th. I don't remember the exact date. So what has happened in the past is that when we have preceded StarQuest got all the rooms, and we were in deep kingship. Good for the board.
Yeah.
Bad for the members. So the thought is if we start a day earlier on Saturday, travel Friday, a lot of folks in this area can travel Saturday, and then the meeting is Sunday and Monday, ending Tuesday morning. So it may save a lot of people a vacation day, but it also allows us to have the rooms.
Yes.
So it's going to behoove us to get rooms early, because the StarQuest guys will.
Well, I'm going to, before I leave here.
Yeah.
Can we do that though with the person up front? I paid my bill, but can we reserve rooms with them now?
I think we can reserve with Christine, tell her how many we want, whatever we used this year.
Yeah, basically, right, turn it
Yeah.
over.
Because this year we ran into a problem with the other group here, the radio astronomy class.
Well, that was a new one for us. We've never seen, I don't ever remember seeing that group before. We almost conflicted with them, I don't know, 4 years ago, Oh,
that we were ending and they were starting.
okay. What I'll do is I'll get with Sue Ann today, and I will try to nail down a date starting on Saturday for us. So it would start Saturday afternoon instead of
Yes, and
Sunday.
then we would end Tuesday morning. StarQuest would come in Tuesday and do their setup.
That'd be great.
And then
Do we have a
would have the
kitchen?
rooms for Wednesday night.
Do we have a kitchen crew for Sunday morning?
We do.
Okay, so we come a day early, the food and so on.
Oh. Well, that's something we gotta figure out, because like this time, we didn't start till dinner time Saturday. Was that a?
Sunday, yeah.
Sunday.
We start at noon on Sunday, or 1 o'clock on Sunday.
Right, but we don't have food until it's dinner
Yeah.
time.
Yeah, but you can go to the visitor center.
That's true, that's true.
That's good, so we can still go there.
Yeah, okay.
Do we need any vote on moving the date?
I don't know if it's worth it in the notes, and it's not a big deal, but the question was asked last night, will Tom be a part of the board? And the response was, no, he would just be an advisor to the president.
Yes, that is true.
But he's not a member of the board.
That is correct. That is what he requested.
Yes.
Yeah, the plan is, my concern is you don't need old geezers on the board. You want to have younger people with young ideas. And Ken and Tom had asked me to go on the board so I could advise them. And I thought about that and said, you know, they could just appoint me as a committee of one to advise them. So I just get copied on the board emails and attend any board meetings. And that allows people who haven't been on the board to be on the board. Because this club needs young people, not old white bald-headed guys. Or old white, with white hair guys. I was referring to the white.
I guess one question. One question, we always had the past president was a voting member also. And I guess we probably won't have a past president. So does that change anything in terms of forms and
Well,
for the board?
I would only think I'd still only get one vote. I mean,
Yeah, no, you don't get two votes.
no, I don't want two votes.
But my question was, did it screw up anything in terms of?
Paul, we did that several years ago to ensure continuity,
Yeah, I know.
because the issue was the president would leave, the new guy would come in, and if he hadn't been on the board, there was zero continuity. So this just allowed some continuity. So being that Red Cap is going to be president again, there's no need for that.
But my question was, is there a number of problems with forms and with majorities? You don't want a tie vote there. Could you have a tie vote?
I can't hear it.
He's saying the potential of having a tie, in other words, that we would lose that vote. Would that create a problem with majorities and when we do votes?
From a practical point of view, no, because almost everything is approved by everybody, or maybe one or two people disagree. So from a practical view, if the number of voters is even or odd, really doesn't matter. Because we're pretty much in agreement. All of us want the organization to keep going and be healthy, so
Yes.
it says generally, you know.
You can always bring Richmond in the odd vote. Because Richmond makes the count odd.
Peculiar or?
No, odd. It gives it an odd number.
Oh, I see.
Oh,
Okay?
Yeah. So if we
okay.
have a
We've got
tie,
4,
and then 1.
and 2. And then Richmond is Director Emeritus.
Yeah, a director forever.
How they say that word, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So he has a vote.
Okay. So we've got, we can,
You can
okay.
handle a typo.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
No, it's a good point. It's a good
Yeah.
point. So, but yeah, I don't see any sense if the previous is the same as the current, so, as far as the president.
okay, so I think that's it. That was the end of
Okay,
it.
I think it was, I just brought up the
notes. I put down some notes, and they'll just be amended to the minutes as the meeting after the meeting or whatever.
Okay. Was there any heartburn over the possibility of us starting on Saturday? Was there, I like to put that out there for anybody if that,
See, personally, I prefer it starting Sunday, but yeah, if I'm outvoted, hey, I'll show up here Saturday night.
from the standpoint of it makes it easier to get rooms, because now this year I didn't have a problem. My room was available, and I come in a day early because I like to get set up and get my stuff organized. Just makes it easier. And so that's why when Tom brought up the Saturday instead of Sunday, I was a bit.
So we really won't know what we're going to do on that until you have a good discussion with Sue Ann about next year's
Yes.
scheduling.
That is true.
Okay.
SARA Quest always use Wednesday through whatever, set up on Tuesday, is that a common thing?
What it is that Sue Ann wants to have the two of us together, because that knocks out a week, as opposed to half a week and half a
You
week.
just answered the question, if Sue Ann wants it. If Sue Ann wants it.
Yeah, so it makes her scheduling easier.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If the two of us are together, because then she can have weeks, the teachers.
Yeah,
So that's the purpose of us proceeding or following StarQuest. And we made the decision to follow StarQuest because of the room situation, that they would gobble up all the rooms early.
Yeah.
So this way, when we proceed then, if we start a day early, we don't have the conflict of the room.
If Sue Ann wants it.
Just simple logistics.
It also helps on the ladies' outing.
Well, if it helps on the ladies, then stop right there.
Janice was mentioning last night that a lot of places were closed on Monday.
Right.
So
Wow.
now you got a weekend type thing.
Well,
when
you got, there's
definitely
two females
everything's
involved,
going.
we make it both of them happy, that's a problem.
Yeah.
Just remember, happy wife, happy life.
Oh, and it has to be a spouse, not a wife. What if there's a man that comes in? Yeah, I'm just saying.
It's the 21st century, so there's lights up here.
Okay. Let's see. Oh, and I just want to reiterate that we mentioned no digital cameras after the gate. Airplane mode only for everything. Don't climb on antennas. I'm just doing this again just to make sure everybody hears this. And I'm sorry?
That's a little bit late.
Yeah, I know, but I'm trying to right the wrongs and right the omissions that I
Oh, we mentioned it yesterday.
we did, but I don't want to do it again.
This, how many people,
I'm sorry?
how many people are on the SARA list, the Google list?
I don't know.
803.
Who's doing
So
it?
it's-
How many members are there?
2 or 4.
Yeah, we did the, Melinda sent us she gave us some.
The other thing is ERA, European Radio Astronomy Group, or whatever they were called, is disbanded. So we're picking up a lot of their members on the listserv. Because they took that listserv down, and the guy who was running it moved back to Scotland from Germany. So that group is all but gone. So it gives us a good opportunity to pick up new members from that.
Good. So, did the minutes, we reviewed the business meeting. Is there any other questions? Yes.
Since I wasn't there for the Raspberry discussion last night, I didn't know you were going to have one. I've got one question. Since we're no longer funded at all by SARA, previously we had asked people to contribute and get a discount if they were SARA members. If they weren't a SARA member, to contribute an equal amount if they bought something. I would propose we discontinue that, since we have no affiliation officially.
What are you referring to?
In previous discussions, we always said that we would sell things $20 higher than. And
Okay.
give the $20 to SARA Treasury. Since we're no longer full affiliated with the SARA Treasury, I propose we just do away with that and we solve the whatever we can make for it.
Do we need any action on that?
I don't think so, because
That's
Since that's not really a SARA question, that's really a question for the.
It's for the board. They need to know that the LLC won't be providing any money to SARA.
just make that information available.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so in my notes, we've been informed that the Razor LLC no longer discounts the Sarah.
We could put that in the notes and just do it that way.
Yeah, I have a question, and you guys might have already addressed this in the past, but it was asked me to pass on. Have you ever considered setting up some kind of a trust or something in order to give out some scholarships for people to come to these events, early career individuals to come to this event? Because some of them might not be able to afford it.
We have $5,000 in grant money that a student or a school can request for a radio astronomy project. But we've never discussed a scholarship fund
For Sarah East.
I think it would be really good to get some early careers for this conference, but they might be not doing that, so is there a way we can think about how to do that?
Yeah, I mean, is $1,000 a year too little?
I mean, if you could bring at least 2 or 3, that would be great. 2 or 3 early careers funded, and then that would cover it.
How much is it?
I don't know how much, normal,
Would you just pay for the cost of attending, or are you talking about?
That would be something you have to consider. So, attending and lodging, I mean, the places and groups that I know that have scholarships to this kind of meeting, they provide everything except transportation. They will provide,
Fixed cost.
yeah.
So let's talk about it real quick. It's $165 for the meeting,
Which includes money that is membership.
is membership.
That's where it is.
But
That's
the
true.
student membership is $5, so that's $150. And then what's the cost of the room?
Well, it depends on whether you stay in the bunkhouse and you split
But
with.
we don't use the bunkhouse.
So,
You could imagine it was in students.
So if we had 2 students,
Right, so it's got to be the lower cost.
if we had 2 students, if we did it for 2 students, we could put them in one of the dorm rooms.
right.
So that would work. So what's the cost of the dorm room?
Well, they have to both be there.
So it would be, we're talking maybe,
Say it's 75 for
For another, it's
yeah.
55.
Hmm?
For another, it's 55.
yeah, we're all about the same. So, so we're talking about $300 per student.
So $1,000 covers 3 weeks.
Because I don't really want to see the numbers. Just.
Well, let's start with 2 for each. 2, we can put in a room.
Well, I don't think they're worried about putting their own together. I think they will put just on one end of the student house, they will going in the room together. I don't think that's a consideration.
We brought groups here before, and Sarah waived all the fees, and our area waived lodging, and we pretty much had to pay for gas to get here. That was the only thing, the expense.
Why don't you go ahead and request someone to propose it to the board,
Okay,
and then everybody can get input.
okay. We wouldn't vote on it now.
We can vote on that.
Oh, okay. Would this be one where the whole body would vote, or would it just be the board of directors?
You can have the whole body vote.
I'd like, for that particular one, I'd like the whole body to vote.
Yeah, that's fine.
So I'll propose that, to put a scholarship together for, what did you call it again, Lori? You had a name for it.
Young career, young career.
Early career.
Early career.
Early careers. For early careers, and do we need to specify an amount? It sounds like it would be the cost of attending and room and board.
Actually, if you're going to do this on an annual basis, which I think is what she wanted,
Yes.
what we really have to do is to establish a scholarship fund, and maybe that can come out of the current budget so that there's a budget item for scholarships to the annual meeting. And if we're going to do the annual meeting, we'll probably should do the Western Conference as well. One or two such scholarships for each. That makes it their, and of course, they're still on the hook for their own transportation. I think this really has to go to produce a budget. I don't know who sets the budget. I think that's the board. The board directly sets the
How about
budget.
if we, okay, let's do this, let's address this in the sense, we'd like to pursue this.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can I make a motion?
Make a motion.
I move that SARA supports 3 early career scholarships to, for students to attend the annual conference at Green Bay.
Sorry. Let's put in there what defines a student. So we're talking about high school and undergrad.
Can you just do early careers, so that you have some professionals that are like early in their career, or you don't want to?
That's pretty hard to define.
We want to put an age limit between 15 and 20 or something? Is that reasonable, Lori?
I don't know that you want to put an age limit. I mean, do you think that it would be hard to, that people would not know? I mean, early career means a lot, but I mean, I just wonder about putting an age limit on there.
Lord, remember, this is amateur radio scholarship.
That's right. And that's exactly where I'm coming from. This is amateur radio astronomy, and we don't have any very many early career amateurs. So I'm not actually looking for somebody who's in the business, right? But we're looking for somebody who can carry on the radio astronomy as a hobby, as an amateur in the field. So it's really not career, it's not really getting the schools to feed in the pipeline. It's finding other people that are passionate about this but can't necessarily come to this.
Well, it is building up career skills on how to put instrumentation together, how to process data, how to measure.
Sure.
So it's career skills that you're getting if you come into something like that. But, you know, like ham radio was the start for my career. It was a hobby, but definitely, you know, started my career direction. Radio astronomy can be the same way. Somebody takes an interest in it, they learn how to handle technology, build electronics, put together instrumentation, process data. So those are career skills, even though it's an amateur group.
Well, maybe I could ask the younger people in this group how they might like that to be called, what that would be called. What would you, if you wanted to go for a scholarship, what would entice you to go for a scholarship in this? What would you call it? Any ideas?
I don't know, it feels that
Hold on. You guys?
Sorry.
but a lot of students that will be looking for scholarships will probably be looking
I don't know what the difference is, you know, we're getting money that.
To me, a scholarship is for scholarly pursuit, getting an education. A grant is getting money for a purpose.
And you could just call it a SARA grant, a SARA conference grant. And then
That's
you
fair.
have to get into that, who has to,
Get into the minutia later.
how old they have to be. or- Do you have any thoughts on that? No? Does that have any thoughts?
They got-
Young
yeah.
adult is just a phrase that is used often for things that if somebody is going into engineering or knows how to career, it's still hard to do this as a hobby. Young adult is what I would suggest.
You can name that needlessly, and then review each application. You can deal with it case by case. And eliminate the need for any definitive decision now.
Okay, sort of like when you fill out your 50-word, tell us why you want to do this.
So a few things to consider, knowing this from experience. Number one, you have to get the word out there to try and find the right candidates. That's going to be a fairly difficult job in its own right. Then if you do get a candidate and the candidate is a minor, you also have to consider that an adult needs to accompany that minor to the convention. So now you got to, you know, have another person maybe possibly get another room. So those are things that you got to put into consideration.
That's got.
We can check with Jay Reicher on how he handles
True.
high school kids, because I'm pretty sure they come up to attend his session,
Right.
but there's
You want to
people,
look into that.
there's people here,
Yeah,
so you don't have to bring someone up, I don't think.
but you do have to address it.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. We don't need any legal.
And transportation to get here.
We're well, I think, yeah, that's up to the individual. I believe is how we're handling that right now. But right now, it's going to still be in discussion, so. But we want to gather the information so that we can address this properly.
If we start with 2, then we can assist on transportation and get a handle.
That's true. I mean, we got to learn to walk.
Yeah.
So I think Steve was next, and then you, Mr. Kelly.
Yeah, I think for grants now, SARA requires the student to do something like a presentation or a
True.
seminar. Would that apply in this case because they're only attending a conference and not doing a project?
I'd kind of like them to do a project because then that kind of lets this old cadres kind of get in some more years and help.
So it would be both the attendance and some sort of project to go with it.
But that could be a criteria for determining who attends.
Sure.
Someone who has done a science project, someone who has worked with their local astronomy club or the Girl Scouts, who can, maybe with some help and assistance, has something along that line.
We put out a number of grants, and we're doing a number of grants a year for projects. So that gives us a good base to contact and say, if you're interested in attending the SARA Conference, it'll be competitive, and there's 2 spots or whatever number is decided on. But that gives us a good base of people we know that are interested.
So, if I could say a group of half a dozen high school students, we've done this before, but that places a limit on the number. We provide our own transportation, I think, pretty much everything else. In the minor
I think if you could grab that, Bruce, as far as make sure you document that. Just as, you know, there's a number of good ideas here, and I'd like to try to.
So, the year before last, we had a Radio Joe conference, I had about a half a dozen students, and I was the only one that pretty much, paid for, room board, that kind of thing. And our AO waived all of the fees, and Sarah waived the registration. I think it was about 6 students and 3 adults. We had to have chaperones too.
Oh, yes, yeah.
And I'd have to pay the difference. They don't have the money to pay.
Because what I'm thinking is that I would definitely like to get the input of the different possibilities, just so that then we can address it accordingly.
I was gonna say, if you wanna, in a way, keep it simple, limit liability, make it 18 and up.
Well, that's always a possibility that they're adult.
Yeah. It just makes it much
Actually,
Oh, yeah.
more in tune with what you want to do, I think, with the early, for getting people that are, you know, the adults that want to take this on. I'm not sure that I'm not sure that you should limit it to Western or Eastern Conference. I mean, what if they live right in New Mexico and they want to attend the conference, or they live in Arizona and they want to attend the conference?
Let them choose the conference
Why
of
not
their
let them
choice.
choose the conference?
Yeah, and then we can do that too, because I've presented both. And the venue is really not as important.
And eventually, you know, depending on what happens with this facility, there might, you know, NRAO may predominantly be in New Mexico, you know, in this, of course, in the next 2 or 3 years, so.
That's a good point too.
So they would cover their own transportation, or that would be part of this?
We've got to work that
You
out.
can do bus or train.
That could be worked out on a case-by-case basis and the board vote, couldn't it?
I would think so.
Yeah, the board all agrees we're gonna buy an airline ticket for, you know, this kid to, come from Chicago to Green Bank or whatever.
But then it makes it hard to advertise that, to get the word out to your community college or your astronomy club, what exactly in Michigan for life groups would be covered.
Yeah.
Well, those of us that are AL members, you can put it out through the AL. All of us have college or 5 in town. With the astronomy programs, you can put it out to. So that should be in astronomy clubs that are in our areas to get the word out. I would suggest you appoint a committee to come up with a plan to present to the board.
Yeah, I want to make one point.
Oh, sorry, yeah, we seem to be going.
Yeah, well, the other thing is, if this European amateur radio astronomy group is designed, I know that we've had European and Middle Eastern attendees from time to time. The question is, do we really want to limit this to North America or even the United States?
Well,
I really, and this is, and we really are going around in circles, I see it.
Yeah, that's why I agree with Tom, would like to.
I think the committee might be right, but we do have a motion on the floor.
So, please, Tom, let's let you finish that.
Okay, so I will amend my motion to move that SARA Board of Directors forms a committee to study this situation and report back in 30 days.
I'll second that.
Can he second it, or has it got to be a board member?
It's a meeting. So he can second it.
Okay, very good. I just wanted to give you that. I'll make sure.
Well,
Richard?
Okay.
No, that's fine, so you second it.
Okay, so Tom Crowley seconded that?
No,
Tom Davis. Tom Davis.
it is a town, but it's not.
Yeah, you can just start off.
What's that?
All in favor?
It's been seconded, and we're done with this.
Oh,
discussion.
yes, I'm sorry, call a vote, and, all in favor of this?
Aye.
So all opposed? Motion back.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
before the end of the meeting, appoint a committee
Okay. Which means they have to do it tonight.
for the presidential,
Thanks.
Yes.
president appoints committees and so.
That's true, I just want to know that I won't.
During the break, we talk with you all.
This is a true statement, and that's nice when they have to have a vote for that. Yes, sir.
I would point out a lot of this does already fall under the grants program. So a student could do a lot of what we're
But most of our grants, most of our grants typically for like kids and things like that, and not for.
That's the point, so if we haven't had any requests for money come here, it's just because we haven't let them know that was possible.
That could be part
What
of
was
it.
the number of grants?
25.
Because I think we have 5,000 in the grant bucket.
Okay.
So.
Is that every year?
Yeah, that is every year.
Okay.
Unless you change it.
Which I would probably think if we're going to include that type of a grant, we probably want to also.
So currently, there's enough money in there for whatever the community decides. And if not, if the board votes for one, it's not that like before.
No, no, I mean, obviously we want to be frugal. Okay. If there's nothing else, I just had one item I need to take care of before we go on to our talks. Lori, I did just a certificate of appreciation for Lori's efforts. I'm sorry I had to pick the VLA picture. Thank you. So do we have a break now, Tom?
Wait.
Oh, results, sorry. I will. So, here, it's wonderful. Thank you for everybody that participated. So, 2 more years of fun. They have to be fun, right? A lot of them. So, all right. So, I appreciate you guys. All right, next time.
Can I give them a copy of the board on that?
Sir?
Can I give them a copy of
I don't know if you're supposed to do that. Where is Wayne McKay? Wayne McKay. So what you need to do is we also
condolences on your election.
Well, I'm used to it.
First team.
And 9-10.
Yeah, it seems that way, doesn't
Okay, thank you. We will appreciate it. That was it. With us or anything.
Have you been at
Not a this organization.
Well, I'm really thinking, you know, is that he's on
Yeah, you'll love Socorro. It's a great little town. It really is. I've been there a couple of times. It's a really comfortable, laid back place of the town. It's wonderful.
I'm going to be impressed.
introduction to it. I was busy and I didn't get to. So I'm gonna give you a work on it. So you can put on your desk.
But actually,
This one was started last night. So I didn't get a chance to kind of see the work. Yeah. Yeah, I've got a few other candidates now around here. Now you have a frog, and you can kiss a frog, and have some friends, and nothing was wrong. They kind of an outrage, really, sit on your desk, and that's future. No, I just have some last.
Let's sit down. Everybody's got their own
Had the last weekend or the second to last weekend. So it's either the 26th or okay, let's just say the 18th and 19th.
as far
I've been in Socorro twice, and first time I was there was for the synthesis imaging workshop, and they, New Mexico Tech supplied a very nice conference room there. We could really, the whole week and a half or so, the second time was for the first SARA Conference there, and we had to have the conference at a hotel conference room, West Western conference room there in Socorro, and that was really nice. Although I think that they put some restrictions on housing and stuff like that. But anyway, they have quite a few hotels there. Don't worry about housing so much. I'm really happy.
So, from my perspective, everybody's here, people here, no way I can slip out and slip in. That can get up and take. And that's what I'm about to do, make sure that I think I make a lot of yeah.
Is Burlington still in production?
Yeah, I don't know longer, figure out that's the thing, if I get a new, come in and out, I know how to hear.
Yeah, that's kind of flexible. Last time when we were in Socorro, we did the meeting sections on Saturday and the future sections on Sunday. And since it's pretty far out there, it's about half an hour's drive or so.
It belongs to. I know him very well.
So I think I should put an extra day in here for the conference section, starting on the 17th. And then, so on these 2 days.
And just factory built one online that makes it bigger.
Somebody was telling me the world's best playing challenge.
Two remaining
Yes, Tony. Where do you live?
Well, the short answer to your question is yes. Our focus is shifting. Well, I say it's the last.
Tony is single kid. I was going to ask about Publix. At least in Gainesville, actually the Publix in the West. That's still excellent job. You had a can of happiness or whatever. I'll ask
lights to the line.
As far as my house.
Oh, it is.
I had some couldn't get Chicago. You know, it's not like
It's just all
give it to the dealers, I charge $10.
That's actually the operation.
Yeah, they have, but Cedar Key is it's actually the saving grace of being cheap. Because, there's an astronomy village there, 23 families live there. So we started going down there in 1994, we went to the Atlanta Star Party in the fall. From down there, that club came up and so you want to get the cheap one, so we went down and just loved it. We bought it. So we're there. January, February, March.
All the Iraqi calls coming from.
We have a townhouse in Atlanta. So we're in Atlanta. We're going to spend more time in another home.
Restaurants in the area, and just kind of part of it. As far as municipal people are concerned,
No, just more strong.
their dinners are probably at your own expense, like a lunch is probably, breakfast can be arranged.
It's his fault. Yeah, but I liked it down there. Everybody's really nice and productive measures. So where do you live? Yeah, we have a sign in Castle Rock. We're just out there. Yeah, we were out there this summer.
I know the message kept the bigger very nice, but NRO has something that.
Oh, okay.
Yes. I know, last year, that's okay.
For the
Let's
power
have those
company.
two issues together. The only other issue is, inviting
Internet
speakers.
stuff.
Usually have.
That's about all I do with technology. Computers is what he does.
I can't remember exactly.
Well, they have upgrades, he's in there on the weekend. Making sure everything works. He was up in Concord. So when we go visit him out there, we have to spend a couple of days down in Dundee before, because that's so much higher than Dundee was bad enough. Yeah.
Hi. So, okay, that's a good segue into Lorraine doing, do you have like a student section? Somebody who loves good students?
I think I'm gonna move to the bathroom.
I got a problem,
Oh, no.
I can't get this thing up. And I'm in a mode that I can't get out
I'll
of.
leave you alone.
It's almost kind of eerie, you go past the last ditch down here. And then there's kind of like a spot that's been carved out of the forest, kind of elongated areas. So that's just here, that's just here.
There's a place
Next, maybe whoever they get it, so we, I'll take them out. That's what I had. I'll bring my orange. Nobody does the process in real time, year to year, and just like, basically highlight everyone, just X-ray, and then, using various
Just like your shit in his last to say, oh yeah,
I was working on a little and some 5 terabytes of data. Also, we're playing time. Time to make figures, calculate statistics. Spend the naming plumbing costs of the
got in touch with Albania and Kosovo, who are interested in organizing this whole side road is at the area. Also, on the right, starting up a little drawing story out in Kosovo, and got very successful. Solar astronomy, more other than actually Sunday. So she's very nice.
Take an hour. Big pressure cost is mostly
I just got touched a little while ago.
So, we don't very so this is actual data that GBT observers get. Normally, the data from again has a present in their data, and the data is like in small amounts. By the time the data gets there, it's time and accuracy resolution is source of the real-time HD. So we can plug into the real-time data feed, calculate statistics as we go, so what's your background? Where are you?
Okay, let's get seated.
It's got something on the way else, which takes some more notes, and afterwards, note takers or I didn't think about.
Hi, everybody. Before you get started today, I wanted to let you know about an opportunity. So I have here this list. Howlands, you were on that list. Somebody else cleared you, so I hadn't looked up her name. But the other folks were not on that list. Last name, I'm going to butcher it. Suzuki or something like that? Yeah.
I submitted twice.
Well, if you submitted yesterday, it wouldn't have come through in time. I wrote to them, and they wrote back, and they said they couldn't find you in their database. But that's okay, because if you're on this list, or even if you're not, I have about 12 slots for those of you, especially if you're new to the SARA organization or new to the program and haven't done this yet, if you'd like to accompany us on a GBT tour. So that's pretty awesome. Okay, and so that tour will leave at 1. We're going to meet at the Science Center. And so I only have 12 slots, maybe 13 after I count my students. They said 26, and so I have enough guides so that we could take 40 up altogether. So that would be 14 if they didn't tell me it did and don't have 27 or something students.
Okay.
But that will start at 1, and that will be over in the Science Center, so you have to eat your lunch really quick today. But maybe if, especially if there are those of you who have not done that yet on the list, you could do that, but you don't have to have gone through the screening or have me have a record of your screening to do that. So you're definitely on if you want to.
I was going to say, some of the newcomers don't know what the GBT is, so that's the large radio telescope.
The big telescope down there in the field, the Green Bay telescope, and we're going up.
And if you haven't seen it, that's really worth it.
What I'd like to do too is the 12 people, I'd like to get as many of the people that have not gone up yet.
But you're first on the list, okay? And it's amazing. I mean,
Yeah, this is my first year, I'd like to go.
okay. Are you on this list?
No.
Okay. Okay, yeah.
If I have a spot, you can give it to someone else, I've been.
Okay. So this is the people whose names I have for the high-tech tour today. And so the high-tech tours is going to be 2 groups that'll swap. You're going to be meeting with Steve White, who is one of our engineers, and Maurice, who is another engineer. And they've been working very hard on a brand new receiver that's going up on the telescope for initial testing next week. And it's just kind of all the pieces have come together. The software works. They got it cooled down finally. And so you're going to get a chance to look at that. So, all of you on this list are welcome to that. It's just looking at some equipment that you have to have this ITAR.
How would I know if I'm on the list?
Well, if you put in, supposedly, if you put in a form.
I did.
Okay, and so then your name should be on this list right here.
Just to make it clear, the high-tech tour doesn't include the GBT.
The high-tech tour does not include going on the GBT. It's sort of one or the other. The GBT tour starts at 1. We're going to meet at the Science Center and get on a bus and head down there, and our guides will be with us. And the high-tech tour will convene out here in this lobby promptly at 1:45, right? That's what the schedule says?
Does GBT needs closed-toe shoes?
Yeah. So, and Steve and Maurice are going to meet you out here and break you into 2 smaller groups so that you can get up and look at things, and then they'll swap you so you can see both places.
So, Samantha, I received like 3 notices from the export control approving people. So let me run back and make sure.
I've gotten them all.
You've gotten them.
Yeah, this is the list
All
right here.
All right, and then we were supposed to have a group picture at like 1:30. Is that going to be at a different time then? Ken? Is the group picture going to be at a different time then?
Right, thank you. We're thinking, when will everybody be back from the GBT and the high-tech tour? When will that happen?
So it'll happen before your 3
So at 3 o'clock, could we possibly herd all the cats out there?
I think so, yeah. 3 o'clock.
Well, last time we did it up in front of Jansky. We can.
If you do it in the field right here, you can get the GBT in the picture.
I think that's.
And it's easy, 'cause you don't have to go very far.
And the other choice was the rubber. It's usually those three that we do.
What's the other one?
Jansky,
The Reaver.
Reaver, and GBT. We usually stand. in
Oh,
front.
okay. I haven't seen one with the GBT behind us. I don't know what those-
2 years ago, but 2 years ago.
It's mostly to get your smiling faces
Oh,
on record.
that's the one where we're just.
Yes?
We never had a picture of us all staring at something in the lab. You know, and that receiver design is neat.
The beard. Okay, so
You noticed that too, I was talking about beard. about
I'm gonna leave this here. And if some of you that are on this list are gonna go on the GBT instead, that's fine. Let's kind of make a list of the 12 or 13 people. And you need closed-toed shoes if you're gonna go on the GBT tour, because you just do. And preferably not skirts and things like that, but that's, if you guys wanna wear your skirt, it's not prohibited, it's just
So,
suggested.
what we're gonna do, I'll make a command decision. It's been the last one, or the latest, the one that's farthest away time-wise, the one out here, what did you say, not the Jansky? The Reaver. We'll be out at the, let's do it in front of the Reaver. Is that okay with everyone?
Yeah, you're gonna lose half an hour.
There you are. You'll lose half an hour.
You're gonna lose half an hour out of the day.
Well-
Which means those people who wanna do the impromptus,
Well, I'd like to have the picture, because that's sort of like I like that too. So if anybody's got any druthers, I'd like to do the picture. So we'll do that at 3.
Just take a couple pictures and Photoshop everybody in.
I hated that, but yes. I got Photoshop, so it's not all it's cracked up to be. Okay, so, actually, what I'd like, the problem is, isn't it true that the GBT people and the architect tour won't be getting back at the same time? Well,
No, probably not.
so we've got to pick a time that we don't have to back. Until 3 o'clock.
Oh, that's
That's true too, we could do
okay,
it
so let's make sure we
before.
get us.
Already signed. Yeah.
It'll be right in your face.
So 3 o'clock, command decision, 3 o'clock in front of the Reaver.
Well, the Reaver is round. I mean, we can always go in any position, avoiding the.
It's fine, we'll deal with that. Okay, thank you, folks. Has anybody seen the commercial from EDS long ago that they did on cat herding? Anybody seen that?
Yeah.
That's what this feels like.
Okay. All right, so we have these 3 want GBT. And what was your last name? Westman?
That's me, yes.
You want me to check? I'll double check, see what I can find out. Okay. Okay.
Okay,
Okay.
so people on the GBT will meet.
At 1 o'clock
1 o'clock.
at the Science Center.
And they are very prompt.
We are, yeah.
Since they're in maintenance mode, digital cameras, yes or no, then make that GBT? Nope?
Nope.
Okay.
No digital cameras, please.
That question came.
Yeah,
Your
because
cell phone
there are other
camera-
telescopes in
Your
operation.
cell phone camera is a digital
Cell
camera.
phone camera is a digital camera. Okay, all right, so hopefully we've got that sorted out.
Okay, well, what we did was.
We do. Yeah, okay. All right, see you later, guys.
All right, thank you.
What I don't understand is because,
So what time is the photos at 3, or did we change
Three.
it close to 3?
Three.
It is 3 o'clock.
You're 100 yards.
3 o'clock.
GBT, digital camera.
Because I really I like the picture, because I go back and, you know, see everybody that attends.
Are we supposed to put the other list here?
I would just say. What do we got next? Okay, guys, it's run. We got it.
History
All right, so without further ado, I'll introduce Father Cromwell.
I didn't know he was Catholic.
Irish Catholic.
The worst.
Well, this worked well.
Forgive me, Father, I have sinned.
Many times.
Just remember, the gates to heaven are only open to those who repent. In order to repent, you have to sin. Okay. Jay, where's Jay? Basket. Jay.
A summons.
A summons, that's it. Okay. Plan A was I was going to talk about the SDR Plus and using that for Radio Joe, which is really neat. And it's $150, plugs right into, it's just neat. I didn't quite get that finished, and I was going to do that with 1420 in the hydrogen line. I didn't get that finished. Tom said, hey, you're giving a talk, what's your talk on? And so I said, all right, what's going to be fun that I can think of real quick? And I said, E.T. Well, being an old geezer, you folks won't understand this. You're much too young. In the mid-'80s, there was a PC adventure game called Leisure Suit Larry. Searching for love in all the wrong places. So I said, gee, this is kind of the way we've been searching for E.T. I mean, 65 years. He hasn't talked to us. Why? So I kind of thought, well, let's talk about the search for E.T. And perhaps we should accept that after 65 years, we might need to change the methodology in what we're doing. So let's kind of talk about that. So, searching for E.T. goes back a long time. The New York Times, as you know, only reports the news that's fit to print. And the New York Times is never wrong. No matter what they say about Donald Trump, they're never wrong. Or Hillary, they're never wrong. So, Percival Lowell discovered canals on Mars, and he mapped it out. The New York Times reported that the Martian engineers were a heck of a lot better than the Earth engineers, because they could build canals rapidly. That was about 1908. Does anybody know what Percival Lowell saw on Mars?
Canale.
Canales. Yeah, which he took his canals, the Italian word. But what was he mapping out?
The back of his
The
eye.
young lady in the back of the room.
Well, it was the blood vessels in his eyes that he was seeing.
Yeah, he mapped out the blood vessels in his eyes. Next time you go to your eye doctor, ask him that. And he'll tell you that they like maps. Okay, so Tesla, not the automobile guys. The real guy, swore that he heard signals from Mars. If you look at the timings there, he might have heard some of the early sounds from Jupiter. The non-Io storms. Marconi, not to be outdone, said he heard the same signals. And then there was a report in 1901 of light flashes from Mars. So, you're all familiar with the Drake equation. When we talked about setting 10, 15 years ago, we said, all right, you know, Frank Drake thinks there's maybe 10,000 planets that would fit this mold. We'll talk about that in a bit. I'm not going to go through that. You should be familiar with it. Enrico Fermi worked on a physics project 42 to 45 and maybe after, at Los Alamos, if memory serves me. This is what he said. If they're out there, why don't we see them? Are they here? And when you look around, maybe you think some of them are. If you go to trailer parks, you'll find them. They can't get here, it's too far. Well, that's reasonable. Civilizations always kill themselves. And if you think about that, you know, we're probably somewhere close to annihilating ourselves. We're certainly annihilating all of the animals around us. So that's possible. They watch our wars and we frighten them. We're too dumb to join the galactic club, so they just kind of watch us. We're a zoo. And I think there's been some sci-fi books out of the 50s in Sci-Fi Magazine and Analog that did that one. And of course, we're a simulation. And of course, we could be machines that were going wrong and where people built us as carbon-based bipeds, machines, with self-awareness. And the question comes up, does self-awareness question us, separate us from other animals? Well, for those of you that have dogs and cats, I'm sure they have self-awareness, or at least the ones I've seen. So, we need a definition of life. About 1944, Schrodinger, who was famous for his cat experiment, he put the cat in a box with poison. So the cat was neither dead or alive, and you didn't know until you opened the box. And if the poison went off, the cat was dead. If it didn't, and if you watch The Big Bang Theory, you have seen this repeated over and over and over again. So anyway, that was this guy. So what he said was that life avoids entropy, and that follows the second law of thermodynamics. Living matter can postpone entropy by taking nutrients. As you can see, I take nutrients. Some of the others don't take as much. But the problem is metabolism may not be a marker of life because there's some geological things that you could say, well, they have a metabolism. So it's not perfect. And after death, you know, we decompose. So entropy occurs. So I thought that was a good definition. Seth Shostak from the SETI Institute was here Saturday night, and he presented his definition of intelligent life is somebody that can build a radio telescope. So those of you in this room who can build a radio telescope are considered intelligent. The others have to work. Anybody know what this is on the side here?
DNA.
Very good. All right, so where have we looked? We looked in the water hole. And on the SARA list a month or so ago, one of the guys who will go unnamed said, why would they look there? It's too noisy. Well, it's actually very quiet. And if you take a look as you come down from the galactic noise, as you get to about just below 1 gigahertz, 800, 900 megahertz, it starts to quiet. You get into where hydrogen is, neutral hydrogen, cold hydrogen, H1, up to OH, hydroxyl, which is 1635, 1665. There's 4 in that maser. That's a quiet area. So the original thought was to look there, because ET, if he was carbon-based, water would be important. So that's where a lot of the searches go on. However, it doesn't matter where the search goes on, because we don't know where they're sending, or if they're sending. So Ozma was the first search, and for those that have attended the 40-foot talk, that feed is on the 40-footer. So Drake started this, he looked at a couple of stars that were nearby. He expected to hear something within 6 weeks, 2 months, 65 years ago. Perhaps not. So, where do we want to look? We want to look in something called the Goldilocks zone. That's the technical term. Circumstellar habitable zone is the other. Rocky planets, we think they should be our size because we're our size. But they could be larger or smaller, depending. And nitrogen skies, because we're about 80% nitrogen. Liquid water, and carbon-based. As I refer to my wife as a carbon-based biped spousal unit. So, then you could also say, well, we could look at silicon-based life forms too, and other life forms we don't understand. And the problem is we don't know what we don't know. So we only, our movement is very slow going forward. So where have we been? These are the searches. And we kind of get up to about 1981. NASA is doing a SETI search. Proxmire, I believe out of Ohio, killed him. So then the SETI Institute was formed, so that was just bang. So we're no longer doing the SETI search. We've got the WOW signal, and where have we looked? Most of our searches have been in the water hole. There's been some phenomenal searches. Charles Osborne and I were involved in a Georgia Tech project using Woodbury telescope, and then the SETI Institute, when they took over the 140 down here, used that as a FUD receiver. So if the 140 received something, they would immediately swing the Woodbury telescope to see if they would hear the same thing. Optical SETI is looking for a flash. The Planetary Society is doing that. There's several other institutions doing that. It was well over 3,000 hours, so occasional hits, none repeated. What they're looking for is a laser flash. So, Big Ear, Ohio State had this huge antenna when John Krause was there, and then after Krause retired, it's now a golf course. But anyway, this was about the best signal that we have seen. And Tau Sagittaria was the closest star. It was in the beam long enough. And of course, there's what was written, and this was a grad student or postdoc who, I've forgotten his name, but who had done this. Anyway, that was that. Curtain passed. The Allen array has been working, and the Allen array is looking at M stars. M stars are dim stars, but their life is extremely long. The thought is, if a planet is in the habitable zone around an M star, it's got billions and billions. We're a 10 billion year star. They're 50, 100 billion years star. So the chances of having life there develop would be really good. So the SETI Institute's now looking there. But I mean, we've done lots and lots of projects, and we just haven't really found anything. So we got SETI at home. And they used to publish what they had found. I have not seen that in the past couple of years. Has anyone seen anything from SETI at home on what's being done? Okay. But this is probably 5 years old. 2,500 heard once, 14 twice. So, but the SETI at home process is still going on. For those of you that aren't familiar with it, it's using a feed on Arecibo and they download that, and then you download the data sets, and you run it on your PC when it's not doing anything. I also run Einstein at home, which is looking for gravity waves. So, all right, optical setting. Searching for pulses, and if you look, an F-type star, that's a photons emitted, and using telescopes and pulsars, and we have a friend who, Dr. Michelle Chin, worked at Jefferson Lab building big lasers. And there's some talk that I think the Navy shot a satellite out of orbit with a laser. So there's, you can really make them powerful. Anyway, that's the other search that's going on. Kepler has discovered 95% of the planets larger than Jupiter. Neptune. And why larger than Neptune? Well, to be honest, when things are far away, if they're bigger, they're easier to see. So when you look for small stuff, it's tougher. So everybody says, well, all the planets are too big. Well, yeah, but we haven't seen all the planets. All we see are the ones that are easy to find. So we have to kind of understand that. It's monitoring 145,000 main sequence stars. Kepler had a problem, it's been repaired. It's amazing, the engineers who work on this stuff, that when things fail, they come up with creative ways. I mean, Apollo 13 failed, and they were able to save the guys, and they had to do some unnatural acts to do it, but they used the LEM as a lifeboat to get them back. I mean, so if you look, we do have good engineers. Perhaps not as good as the Martian engineers, but I think pretty good. All right. The way the naming works, A is the sun. If we look at our solar system, A is our sun, B is Mercury, C is Venus, D is Earth. So that's the way that they name the planets, is their location from the sun. We think that it's rocky, 10% larger than the Earth. It's in Cygnus. So this would be pretty ideal for life. It orbits in 130 days. It's an M dwarf, which is a cool star, so you're closer to get to the Goldilocks zone. And we think that could harbor life. The 21 planets should be 39, I believe. I thought I had changed that. And now we can have a targeted search. We can start looking at stars where we know we have planets that have the conditions we think to harbor life, or at least some of them. The issue is 480 light years away, inverse square law. They've got to be transmitting with a heck of a large signal for us to hear them. Drake's search was, 5 light years and probably 8 light years away. And the 8 light years he didn't think he could see with the Tattle, the 85-foot dish. Okay, so we're well over 1,700 planets that have been detected by various means. If you do the math in the statistics, maybe 40 billion planets in our galaxy that are like the Earth. For every 5th Earth-like planet, it could harbor life. So that gives us 11 billion possibilities. So the Drake equation has changed dramatically over 65 years. Drake, had gotten up to 10,000. Now we're saying 11 billion. And in 16, that's where the number 36 planets are the best opportunities. So, why are we doing the radio search? Because we know how to do it. We're good at it. 65 years, you get pretty good at anything. We make a lot of assumptions. What frequency to search? I don't know. Let's use the water hole, because the water hole is where it's quiet. And it's water, and another civilization would think that. The signals could be a flash. They may not be continuous. And the issue that we have, I need 2 volunteers. One, come on up here. This is fun. Okay. Stand here.
So two old.
Stand here.
Okay.
Shut your eyes. Put your fingers out. One finger. One finger, one hand, one finger. Okay. Now, start turning around. Let me know when they hit each other. When the fingers point to each other, let me know. We won't do this for more than 2 hours. All right, guys, thanks. Okay. What you have seen is a demonstration of ET on one planet sending the signal, and the SETI Institute on this planet receiving the signal. So what did we notice? Their fingers never touched, right? So that's the issue, is you get a small beam, they're swinging, and the opportunity for them to hit each other is slim to none. And then if you look at the amount of sky that we've covered, it ain't that much. So our rotation, the galactic rotation, the rotation of the other planet, it just really makes it tough. The issue of the inverse square law is we double the distance, we half the signal, so the farther away, the less opportunity to detect. And who's going to fund it? Proxmire said the government ain't funding it. So right now, HP, the vice president of HP funded it, the original search after 81. If you look at Bob Allen of Microsoft is the one who funded the building of the array. So it's all private funding, people who are interested, and you get your name on the project. So after 65 years, we need to start thinking about a new way forward. You know, they're like us and have killed themselves off. I mean, our chances of surviving another 20 years, sorry kids, it's going to be tough. Although you could go back to 1960 and say the same thing. We have had 5 opportunities to destroy this world. The military had a training tape in, and the training tape showed missiles launching from Russia. We went on full alert. The missileers were called up. The missileers got their keys out. They armed their missiles. And when you look at the early 70s, Minuteman alone could throw 1.2 trillion tons of TNT with an accuracy of maybe 1/8 of a mile. But when you got 6-7 mile kill radius, it's not all that important. Titan IIs had a 25-mile kill radius. To say nothing of the submarines, the B-52s, and everything else. So we just would have ended the world. It would have been safe for alligators and cockroaches. So we have that hanging over us still. Well, they're not transmitting. We've transmitted once, 3 minutes. We'll talk about that in a minute or two. So we need technologies to look at the artifacts of life. And we should keep the optical and radio going because who knows, we may get lucky. Astrobiology. if we start looking, we have this huge number of planets that may harbor life. May not be intelligent life. They may not know how to build a radio telescope, but it may be life. So what do? We search for oxygen, carbon dioxide, and as the Scots say it, methane. So we look for stars around G, K, M, the dimmer stars, because then those stars burn longer and a better chance to start life. Okay, so what do we have on Earth that we can use Earth as a laboratory for ET and for life on other planets? So we've got microbes living in hot tar. We've got stuff that can live in 5,000 grays of radioactive waste. And what do we take? 3 grays in a week we're dead? Something like that. It's not very much. We have microbes living in boiling water, these water jets under the sea. You got stuff living in the Dead Sea, which is an extremely high salt content. Things living in Antarctica. A jellyfish-like guy in high sulfide. You dig down a mile, you find life. How can that be? And then water bears. Water bears can go from 194 degrees to minus 321 Fahrenheit, and they can live in space. What they do is they go dormant and they come back to life. So on Earth here, we've got some very, very extreme microbes. Lynn and I were out in Yellowstone National Park, and there was a bunch of students who had microscopes and scooping up water out of these ponds out there, the hot ponds, and started talking to them. And they were taking an astrobiology course at the University of Washington. I took an astrobiology course from the University of Edinburgh. So we're beginning to rethink how to look for ET. And there's been a number of bacteria experiments on the ISS. One of the concerns when Mir came back was that it would be carrying bacteria from outer space that had collected. And they had found bacteria that had collected on the surface of Mir and on some of the experiments that they had done. The thought was that when Mir entered the atmosphere, it would burn up and kill them off. So hopefully they were right. Okay, this is my favorite bacteria. When Charles Osborne gets me upset, I'm going to get some of these and put them in his lab. But can you imagine a bacteria that lives on electrons? And that's what it feeds on, electrons. Can you imagine your cell phone being infected? But, you know, and we've found 2, and they're discovering more. They just haven't, you know, done enough research to get them and say, yes, in fact. So my point very simply is that if you want to look for unusual life, this planet's a good place to start. So using this information, it helps us when we look out beyond. So we still think that life should be carbon-based, because when you look out, when you look at Pluto, Pluto looks like every other rocky planet, except it's got calcium chloride. I guess they store that for when it snows and they need to salt the roads. Isn't that what you guys in the Midwest do? Yeah, okay. And then, okay, this is the fun part. If you take a geology course and some of the life courses in the universities here, they say, okay, early Earth had 2% oxygen. It wasn't until photosynthesis started that they started to produce more oxygen. And then we got to the great oxidization period, as I fumble through the word, where we get up to 26% oxygen. Lots of fires, but a big burst in growth for animal life. So we have that. We also produce methane. Cows, Irishmen drinking Murphy's Stout. God forbid it should be Guinness. But yeah, a lot of methane. So we've got these signatures now, and ozone is a great marker because all that oxygen gets up in the stratosphere, and when it gets up there, it turns to ozone, so that's an easy marker. So if we begin to start looking at that, and vegetation is detectable because it reflects IR light. So if we see a lot of IR reflection, then we have an opportunity. So I just said we should use the biomarkers, and now I'm saying, maybe not, because there's geological things that can do this. So a single biomarker may not be proof. We need to look for more. But if we can find water vapor, that can increase our confidence. If we see IR reflection, we see a lot of carbon compounds. If we see CO2, or we have the absence of life. Perhaps we're looking for the wrong things. Or the life resides subsurface. You know, the jury's still out on life on our planets, on Mars, maybe subsurface. The early experiment that was done in the mid-70s, they said, yeah, there's life. No, there's not. And then the meteor said, yeah, there's life. No, there's not. So it's kind of maybe. We just need a better test. And I think we're trying to do that. So we may find planets that are habitable, but because of some catastrophe, big meteor hitting, killing all the dinosaurs, and knocking life out in extinction. But there's a lot of places to look. So, as I said, IR excess, if we start looking and we see a lot of IR coming off a planet, that may be vegetation, it may be life forms doing things. So that's a thought. And you target stars that are over 1 billion years old. And why is that? Because we think it took at least 1 billion years for us to begin to develop life here in the earliest forms. And calcium absorption is another marker. Pollution. The James Webb telescope will have the ability to look for exoplanet pollution, although 1.2 to 1.7 days of integration, they may not do a lot of it. But that's another opportunity. Or we could have alien life thriving on CO2. We have plants that catch animals, close, and eat them. So there could be plant forms, life forms, that have some degree of intelligence.
Smart vegetable?
Yeah. Anybody think a plant can see? Raise your hand if you think. So we got a handful of people that think plants can see. Okay. They may not be able to build a radio telescope, but plants have the ability to detect sunlight and light, and they have the ability to detect what frequency it is. University of Tel Aviv did a course, and the course was called What a Plant Knows, and it talks about the plant's ability to see. they have proven that it can't hear, so playing music for your plant isn't going to help it. But it has a number of senses, and it can actually turn to the light. And if you cut a plant, you can kill it, except for grass and weeds. So we're kind of saying that this life may be with a very heavy planet, very thick atmosphere, and Gliese 581d may fit those conditions. So there's lots of different things we should look for. Okay, as I said, when we started as a planet after the first billion years, and we started to get some microbes, and then the microbes started to become plant life, and that plant life started to absorb the CO2, use the carbon for food, and emit the oxygen as a waste product. So we're at 16–18% oxygen today, and that's the plant life. So as we talk about the problems with the greenhouse gases and CO2, I'll tell you, those trees out there are just delighted. They get all that extra food. So where do we look? 513 nanometers is O2. And if we detect a higher than 2% content of oxygen in a planet's atmosphere, that's a marker for carbon-based animal life. So,
I think they also said that, well, oxygen is very reactive, so if there's not a process that keeps renewing it, and it was somehow created naturally, it would disappear in a relatively short time.
exactly. Yeah, I mean, for those of you that live in the Midwest or West Virginia, your cars are an example of that, of entropy, as they begin to rot out and rust out with the oxygen. Okay, here's a scary one. You've seen the articles on artificial intelligence. You may know of Watson, IBM's intelligent, artificial intelligence, which can do lots of good things. I hate to use this term. University of Georgia has artificial intelligence, although I think most of the students fit that category. I'm a Georgia Tech guy. So,
Figured that out.
and I have a T-shirt that said, "Friends don't let friends wear red and black," which are the colors of Georgia. So by about 2050, we should have artificial machines that can think for themselves. If you look today, and you go in your pocket, and you pull out one of these, 32 gigabytes of memory on this. This room could hold 6 gigabytes of memory in 1983. So we've come a long way in Moore's Law. So as we continue doing that, and we build these artificial intelligence that have the ability, and if you look back when I joined IBM in '64, they had machines designing machines. Machines were designing the machines so that the engineers just put in a Boolean expression and the circuits were drawn and put together and matched. So that's been going on for 60 plus years. And if you look today at the devices in our pockets, we're really good at it, or the machines are really good at it. So we really stand that possibility. And then for you sci-fi fans, we need to go to 2001, A Space Odyssey. HAL is one before IBM, HIAB, you got it? That his job was to protect the mission at all costs. So what did he do? he killed off the astronauts. So when you start thinking about artificial intelligence and using that to help us and to control us, as our society gets more and more to the name society, then we'll have machines that will control us and slap our paw when we do something wrong. When they start designing smarter and smarter machines, they may realize that we're a detriment to their society. So they just do away with us. Now, we have a planet with silicon-based life form. Think about that. It's not that far away from happening, that possibility. And the question is, would they look for other civilizations? Has this happened in other worlds? I mean, it's pure speculation in science fiction, but it's something to think about. Okay, moving on. So far, it's like playing the lottery. Drake picked 2 stars because they were nearby, and they fit what he thought would work 65 years ago. Didn't work. So we're looking at things, and we're not really finding anything. We're to the point now that we're teaching astrobiology, you can get a degree in astrobiology, and we're putting space probes out there that can do this detection. So we're getting closer and closer to being able to find life out there. May not be intelligent, but it'll give us proof that there is life out there. The other problem is the distance. And if you look at Einstein's special theory of relativity, for us to get to the nearest star is Alpha Centauri. What's that, 4.5 light years away or something?
4.3.
4.3, thank you. So if I travel at 98% of the speed of light, how long is it going to take me to get there? About 4.1, 3.8, 4.1. So you say, wait a second.
Within the spacecraft, the time gets all screwed for
Yeah.
Einstein's rule.
So-
Make it interesting.
And then we have particles that hit the Earth that we detect on Earth that lifespan is too short for them to get to the Earth once they hit the atmosphere, and we see them. So a lot of strange things happen when you start looking at the theory of relativity. And I thought it was a great course to start with 3 fingers of scotch, and midway through another 3 fingers, because you start doing the math and you say, how can this be? Anyway, so I mean, it's kind of like the lottery right now. Maybe not as good. So where are we looking? Well, we might be looking in the wrong places. Although the SETI Institute, its new way is getting closer and closer. Why haven't we found them? They're too far away. They're just developing. I mean, we've had, this planet's been wiped out 5 times. And depending on who you talk to, some people will say we're in our 6th as we're killing off other life forms. So that's an issue. You get hit by a big comet, what does it do? You look at what the tsunami did in Japan, and you see that in that part of the world. We haven't found enough planets in the Goldilocks zone to look at. What did I say, 36 to date? And, you know, it's no better than playing the lottery. We just haven't found enough, we haven't looked at enough. All right, so what have we done? We transmitted a message from Arecibo, 3 minutes long. We pointed it at M13, 25,000 light years away. That's a globular cluster, absolutely gorgeous in the telescope. Near or in Hercules, if memory serves me. So we sent this out. Drake and Sagan came up with this. So if somebody gets this message and returns it, it's 50,000 years from now. So that's part of the issue. You kids going to be around in 50,000 years? I don't think I am. But, you know, if you don't try, you're just not going to find it. You know, if you don't play the lottery, you're not going to win. So the end all is, with all the stuff that we transmit, 4 light years away, you're not going to see it. The only thing that you can see that we transmit is Arecibo and some laser experiments. But that's not a purposeful, I want to contact ET. That brings us to the next question. You know, I was out with Charles and one of the other guys bear hunting. I went out and the bear started to chase me. I ran back to the cabin, I opened the door, the bear ran in, I yelled, "Charles, there's yours, I'll go find mine." What happens when we find them? Will this create panic? Well, when Percival Lowell said that the Martian engineers were better than the Earth engineers, didn't create panic. When Tesla said he heard the Martians saying Martian Morse code, could have even been American Morse code because nobody can interpret that, as opposed to international Morse code. And then Marconi agreed with him that nobody panicked. There wasn't panic in the streets of New York City. So more than likely, there wouldn't be panic. There's a number of, there's politics of dealing with ET. There is a protocol that's out there that says this is what you do. And then there's a group in Hawaii, the Exopolitical Institute. Look them up. They're kind of a little bit over the top on this. But there's lots of information there for how to handle contact. And of course, if you saw the picture, how many people saw the movie Contact or read Sagan's book? Okay. You do know that the players were real people, right? The actress, what was her name? Yeah, she was playing the director of the SETI Institute. Remember the blind programmer? He almost played himself. You had Proxmire that came in and took over once E.T. was found. That's who that was, the congressman, the senator. And then the guy who went up in the ISS, who had funded the second experiment, was the vice president of HP. So if you Google the movie Contact, it'll take you through the players that Carl Sagan used when he wrote the book. So it's kind of fun. And then Sagan used Kip Thorne out of Caltech, and his grad students worked on the wormholes for how to beat the speed of light. So the issues, there's a book out there called The Rare Earth. I've read it, it's interesting. It says that we're alone. I don't think so. In 1951, the Pope said, yeah, it's possible that there can be other life on other planets, and they may even have other gods. So he was okay with that. Where do we look? Don't know. Where are they broadcasting? We don't know. And the most important one, which I remember from business, is you don't know what you don't know. Okay. This is one of my favorite expressions. Science, my lads, is made up of a series of mistakes. But these mistakes, it is useful to make because they lead us little by little to the truth. And if you look at science or astronomy 60 years ago, and you take an astronomy textbook from 60 years ago and take one from today, they ain't the same. I mean, we've developed that much technology and knowledge in 60 years. So that's it. Thank you so much. Questions?
I've got a question. I'm wondering if dandelions might be intelligent life, because I've noticed a couple of things. First, you mow the lawn and they start coming up on shorter stems just below the height of your lawnmower blade, which kind of implies an intelligence. And I hope that they're considered intelligent because they constantly beat me out, and I like to think I'm intelligent.
Yeah, I know. I know. I gave up trout fishing for the same reason. I was going against the supreme being. Yeah.
So I've done calculations to approximate the centauri.
Yeah.
Relatively small dishes. And in narrow bandwidths with even hundreds of kilowatts, it's possible after about 1,000 seconds to get CW narrowband pulses, right? The television carriers can be picked up. But I just wanted to ask you about where the Arecibo limit is, because I read and calculated that the Arecibo dish, 2 of them in the Milky Way, can communicate anywhere with their transmitters and receivers that they currently have.
Yeah.
So it's possible to use even moderately sized dishes to receive what we can actually transmit from our planet now, from the power plant, all into a narrowband carrier.
Yeah, it's possible. I'm not saying it's not.
Right.
The issue is the narrow beamwidth.
Yes, exactly.
And
there's too many spaces. Yeah. So that's why the new directed searches that the SETI Institute, they're looking at all the nearby exoplanets.
Yeah.
In fact, the Breakthrough Listen project over here has a 100-planet search space.
And that's what you need to spend more and more time on the planets in the hopes that we see them. You know, if you look at it as a pulsar, and you look at the number of pulsars we've discovered, it's pretty amazing. But when you look at the wattage of those pulsars, that's pretty amazing too. So the question is, are they transmitted? We're not knowingly transmitted. So is another life form transmitted? Don't know. But if we don't search, we won't find it. Anything? Thomas, me lad, it's back to you.
Thank you. Next is Wayne. Okay.
Tom, I just see that you took your computer away. I'm gonna need to plug a thumb drive into something up there. So I don't know if do we have the computer logged in and all that stuff?
Skip that, Wayne. Skip has his. That would be
Okay. All right, Skip's coming to the rest of you.
or else, or whoever.
Okay. Skip's coming too. He may already have it here. Skip, let's see. At the same time or so.
You're good to go. The plugins over here.
Thank you, Skip.
You're welcome.
Let's see if we can make this work. That's working. It's working. Very good.
GBT, capital GBT, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Exclamation mark.
Okay, thank you for the opportunity to once again give you a briefing that's based on work done by some of my students. About a
Well, actually, it was at last year's annual meeting, in some of the discussions that I gave, the people from the Raster group came and suggested that there were several things that an academic institution could do to assist in the Raster project. And we've done several things. I'm going to report today on the last effort that we did in support of Raster, which finished up, this particular analysis was finished our spring term, which ended basically the end of April. And what it is a strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threat analysis that in business we call the SWOT. And here are some of my students that participated in it. These are 3 of the best engineering management students that I've run across. And they did this study as their report, their activity for the Advanced Technology Applications course that they took in engineering management. So in the beginning, Jack London heard the call of the wild in 1903, and Carl Jansky heard the call of deep space in 1931. And you guys are more familiar than that than anybody else, any other audience that I might speak to. So as we all know, radio astronomy is more available now, more accessible than ever before. Capabilities ranging from the Arecibo that we've been talking about all the way to a relatively inexpensive dongle that you can pick up some things with a $20 or even a $10 dongle now and a computer. But one of the biggest opportunities for amateur radio astronomy these days has to do with the software-defined radio technologies, receiver technologies. Lots of different applications for SDR, but the Raster group that was partially funded up front by SARA, a grant to do a study, accepted that challenge of designing a state-of-the-art software-defined receiver with specific application to radio astronomy. And it is to be, and still in flux, of course, as you've heard, state-of-the-art, customized UHF designed with the special features that radio astronomers might benefit from. This is sort of a chronological series of events, and I won't go through all of that, but it's in the printed report that you might be interested in, particularly some of you who haven't followed it really close. But lots of effort been put into this, and having worked with these folks for over a year now, pretty closely at times, I can say that, as I mentioned yesterday, I've been very impressed with their dedication, their motivation, their interest in not only the radio astronomy amateur hobby, but in providing a service to the members of this organization through developing this new receiver. Now, Florida Tech, as you might know, I've mentioned before, I wear several hats. I'm a full-time professor at Athens State University, but I also teach graduate level coursework at Florida Institute of Technology, which happens to have a graduate extension in Huntsville, Alabama. And since my PhD is actually in engineering, with a minor like in engineering management, I have an opportunity to teach some of the brightest minds that I run across in our geographical area. So we started out in the summer of last year, right after the annual meeting here, developing a preliminary project management plan for the development and low rate initial production of a batch of the raster receivers. And we presented that summary report to the raster group, and I think it got reported in the SARA Journal. Then in the fall term, we did a more detailed project plan, came up with some estimated cost numbers with the help of the group, and did some analyses. So then in the spring term, which is the term that I'm reporting on here, we did perform this strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threat analysis, where we compared the current raster, which at the time was raster 2, evolving into raster 3, so to speak, with a lot of other SDR receivers in the current marketplace. And as I said, it's actually a technology commercialization strategies course from an engineering management perspective that this whole thing took place. What is a SWOT? Well, as I said, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threat. It's a tool really for decision making at the engineering management level. You enhance the strategy planning and decision making process with a SWOT. And again, it's kind of a 100,000-foot perspective of a project. You explore possibilities for new efforts or solutions to problems, make decisions about the best path for the initiative, identify opportunities for success, but in the context of the marketplace and threats that might serve to challenge or deter the project. Determine when and where and if change is possible, and at that point you define and adjust and refine the plans to enhance your current project. Okay, so I'm going to summarize some of the results along the way here. Again, I want you to keep in mind, and this is mentioned in the report, that the group of students here are doing this analysis almost as a completely removed entity, think tank, you might think, from SARA, because they had not been involved in it. They had no biases in one direction or the other. A couple of them are design engineers, but we didn't ask them to go off and design their own SDR or anything. So they just kind of took a look at it for what it was, you know. Took a duck for a duck, if it appeared to be a duck in their opinion, and reported on that. So in the strengths area, they were looking at characteristics that give raster an advantage over similar products in the marketplace. Weaknesses, areas in which the group perceived raster doesn't match the best of what's in the marketplace. So these factors included price, performance, where they actually compared some of the system specs of these other things. The utility of the device, is it readily customizable by hobbyists or tinkerers? The hardware agility, in other words, most of all of us like to tinker with something. I mean, we're just not a plug and play group of people, right? It's more like, oh, well, I kind of really want to do it this way. So can we modify it? What about the software agility? Is it reprogrammable, or are you able to modify the software to do something that you might have particular interest in? And then probably the softest part of the whole analysis, of course, primarily because the design and cost of components and stuff are always in a state of flux, was the production analysis based on finances, availability of units, the production plan, and a delivery plan. In the opportunities area, the group looked at company external factors that can enhance the likelihood of raster success. And for opportunities, they looked at potential and planned innovations, market niches, new markets. In the threats area, company external factors that might inhibit bringing raster to the market or negate its perceived strength. And these types of projects that are in a volatile technology area one of the biggest risks is the delay in getting a new product to the marketplace. You always face the possibility that by the time you get it there, it's already obsolete. And if you bought a computer in about the last 5 or 10 years, it's almost like by the time you get the thing home and unpack it, there's a new model that offers you more for the same or less price. So this is the kind of thing we're looking for here. Okay, so new technologies, component technology, Moore's Law that Tom mentioned earlier affects that. The production technology, of course, additive manufacturing, which is basically 3D printing, on-demand manufacturing. It's a very competitive field. The marketplace, whether this is an entry item or what, and the environment, what regulations, what about the supply chain, and how might that affect things? Okay, so of an external perspective, we're not solicited. In other words, although the group communicated some with the Raster team, this particular group, I don't believe we ever had a telecon with, we may have had one telecon as a group, I don't remember exactly. But anyway, the Raster is not available to consumers yet, although you guys did have the Raster group had a beta test program going on. Therefore, the user community can't critique based on experience, which is not totally true, because we did have some feedback that's getting incorporated in Raster 3. Solicitation and collection of survey data was anticipated to exceed the time constraint of the project. So they perceived very early on that, hey, we have 3 months to do this whole thing. We don't have a lot of time to send out a survey of the marketplace and so forth. And again, did not solicit perspectives from the developers. The project team elected to use existing LLC documentation, blah, blah, blah. Something that wasn't presented up front here. In the fall of last year, the Florida Tech team, in addition to that detailed project plan, did form the Raster LLC as part of the project. That has been sort of turned over now to the Raster group. Put together an operating agreement, all sorts of stuff like that. But that information was available to this group of people. So the data set consisted of general use SDRs. I think the group looked at 19 systems. Basically, David Fields recommended this RTLSDR.com roundup. So the team did help a lot there. Bogdan supplied a lot of the pricing and parts list information. Raster plus 5 price point peers in the roundup includes systems priced from 400 to 800. So they grouped the Raster 2/3 version with a group of other SDR receivers in that price range. And I'll speak to that in a minute. But actually, some of the recommendations that came out of the fall study, I think, suggested some changes that were being incorporated, which would have lowered the Raster 3 price probably below the $400 per unit mark. So maybe they consider some others. Performance factors included frequency range, the low and the high, wider's better, analog to digital conversion resolution, bigger's better, instantaneous bandwidth, again, bigger's better. So here's a list of a bunch of the receivers that were looked at. All this data is in the report. And here is Raster down here. It's not that easy to see. But you see, just generally speaking, and this group is sort of organized from best or highest to lowest, sort of, and Raster kind of falls in the middle of a lot of these different things, characteristics. And again, this was sort of a hybrid raster 2/3 design. Here's looking at the group that made up the price peer group that we were talking about. The ASRP1, the Blade RF, and this was all, I think, before the Lime design came about, or in the time frame. The Red Pit, the USRP, then the Wind Radio, all these were in the ballpark, and again, raster at that time was estimated to sort of be in the middle of that bunch. Okay, the methodology, again, open source information was used by the group. Product reviews that were published on this website, rtlsdr.com, made up a lot of the data that was used for the analysis. Some of the assignment of factors, price and performance, are based on the published prices. Utility production factors based on information from the raster documentation. Some of the assessments here, the SWOT factors. Again, this is from the perspective of a detached group who looked at it in the point of view as students, non-consumers of SDRs. These were not people that were really familiar that much with software-defined radio technology, so they just, again, kind of didn't have a whole lot of technical insight, so they looked at it and just sort of made their analysis based on what they saw and kind of took it as presented. Non-practitioners of radio astronomy or any other discipline or hobby radio. So none of them were hams, you know, about all they could say is maybe they played a radio before, you know. They've turned one on, they recognize when they hear a radio playing, probably. Really sharp people, though, I have to say. So again, they developed some graphs that I'm going to show you briefly here. They also assigned weighting factors, and out of a total of 1, I believe all this should add up to 1 here. The price was rated at 0.4. Frequency low and frequency high were rated at 0.2 each, and the A to D converter and the instantaneous bandwidth 0.1. And again, these things are subjective to a degree, and something that the group did not do was to do a sensitivity analysis to see how varying these factors would have changed their outcome. Okay, so in case you weren't blind up until this point, now you can join me and many others who've looked at some of these and say, okay, I'm blind. Anyway, we're following raster here as it fits in. These are all the other receivers that are along here, and these are some of the factors. So raster ranked 10th in the middle of the pack here based on the weighting factors and so forth. So didn't really pop out as wow. It wasn't a wow signal per se. It's just, okay, it's in the ballpark. It's competitive somewhat, but not real high. Now on the price point peer group, in terms of price, raster was ranked third in the middle of the pack, but remember it was a fairly small pack. Here's the 5 devices that were analyzed, and you see where raster kind of fell in here. And again, if you're like me, you might have to stare at these charts 5 or 10 minutes each before it all sinks in, but I'm going to bring you to a conclusion here shortly, okay? Okay, analysis summary. In terms of strengths, price was reasonable. They felt like the price of raster at that time, which we know now is lower than it was at the time the analysis was done. Performance was reasonable. The utility, customizable hardware and software because of open architecture design, so there's some utility available there. Portable across Windows operating system platforms, also backward compatibility there. Modular innovation makes it easier accessible. So those are all strengths. opportunities in terms of performance, a multi-purpose system that could support a wide range of users. Planetary, deep space, aircraft, weather balloons, satellites, ham, etc., with some tuning, customization of the open architecture. Utility, hardware and software customizable. You could do add-ons, utility to other users possibly. One of the things I know the Raster group talked about many times was how do we enhance other hobbyists or other users beyond the radio astronomy market to be interested in Raster in order to increase the numbers. How do we get other people interested in Raster, which would lower the price for everyone involved? So we're talking about ham radio, the option to transmit or generate a signal output, do some other things. Okay, one thing they pointed out was the opportunity to have a Raster blog, a Raster chat room, all these things to generate more interest. Okay, in the weaknesses area, the students felt that there was no real significant discriminators that set the Raster apart from some of these other devices that were available. Good design, in the ballpark, competitive, doesn't pop out. Doesn't really pop out as a big winner there. Production risks, and everybody who's ever worked on a development project suffers this disease here. Getting the design frozen at the time, again, this is a communication problem really. They said the bill of materials was incomplete. That's not really exactly correct. Undefined funding source, vendor and manufacturing agreements weren't fully implemented, I guess. The potential displeasers does not transmit. And again, this is a big appeal to the amateur radio market, although a lot of the software-defined receivers out there obviously don't transmit. Hams are still buying them, right? But a lot of the transceivers
Stop you a minute.
have that, okay?
Where did you get that perception? It'll transmit, we just didn't want to.
Exactly.
All right,
Yeah, I know it has the capability,
it
but
had the capability all along, and anybody
Right.
could come along as a ham and make it transmit if they wanted to.
right.
We wanted a radio astronomy receiver, not a transmitter. And Logan probably going to disagree with me because he always wanted to transmit.
Yeah, that point is well taken and recognized. Bogdan?
It's incapable of transmitting arbitrary signals. It can only produce a continuous wave signal.
Yeah.
Not quite true either.
Okay. I have no fight with that. You guys, that's fine. And again, the students here, these are 3 graduate students that have never met any of you guys and only used the information that was obvious, okay? So that's probably in the documentation somewhere. They didn't recognize it. So peace. Okay? Don't shoot the messenger here. Just.
I think the presentation is correct.
Okay. Well, anyway, the threats were okay, and again, the threats are things that would detract from the potential success of the project. Not anything to go jump out the basement window about, but anyway, price was that it was not an entry-level system. How much of the user population are we losing? In other words, Raster's not a $20 dongle that you can go buy and play with and decide, you know, this SDR stuff is for the birds. I'm not really interested in it. Most of the people that would buy a high-end receiver like that already know what an SDR is and why they're buying it. So, you know, anyway, that's an observation. Production, on-demand and additive manufacturing might make some of the components obsolete, like the case. And of course, the case that they originally saw was the Raster 2 case, which was fairly expensive. And but at the same time, Raster 3 had already picked a mass-produced extruded aluminum case that cut the cost to a fraction of what it was. So again, this is just an observation here. So they're saying, okay, well, maybe 3D printing or something could help. And then the market, they recognized it based on what they saw as a saturated competitive field, no room to play in successfully unless they're recognizable discriminators. In other words, if you're going to be successful, you've got to have a design that pops out as, hey, this is a leader. This is what I want for my money type thing. And they just didn't see it on that analysis. And again, you know, they took it, they reported what they saw, not necessarily. Okay, some more observations. Middle of the pack price and performance suggests there are no significant discriminators. And they did have some caveats on these statements. Marketing is the key. Obvious, okay, duh. Got to get out there and push it, make people aware of it. Market entry appears to be later than sooner, more later than sooner, I guess. Again, the technology is evolving so rapidly, and I think maybe Paul and Bogdan will support that with this line raster 4 technology probably wasn't available even at the time this analysis was done. And suggestion says follow the Microsoft paradigm, release the raster 3 within the next 3 months, let the user community find the bugs, make suggestions, follow with raster 4 within 6 months, blah, blah, blah. That would be fine if you were, you know, IBM or HP or somebody with deep pockets and a 1,000-person engineering team, right, Skip? But, you know, for 3 guys in their kitchen and garage, I don't know if you can expect that kind of thing to work out. Okay, so learn more about. These are some things that what consumers want. And they were suggesting, okay, we know what the radio astronomy group want. What about canvassing the whole marketplace of SDRs and find out what they want as a whole? And I think that's what's happening with the Lime thing, so maybe that's a good deal. What technology are looming in the near and very near future? How would cost, performance, and speed to the market be affected by innovations to materials, components, manufacturing, and programming? Are there any disruptive innovations on the horizon? Could be a serious question. And again, what can raster leverage? In other words, make a threat into an opportunity. And I think maybe in raster 3 and the new raster 4 concepts, that kind of thing's being done. Okay, so here's some of the references and credits that they recognized and gave. And again, a lot of information out there, and couldn't have been done without the help of the raster group. And again, this report is not meant to be derogatory to anyone involved in the project. It's just sort of an independent review of what it looks like to them. And so take it with a grain of salt, and this and $5 you can buy something at Starbucks. Yeah, exactly. Any questions? Well,
just for clarity, you mentioned some times in there. I'm curious as to where the starting points are on those times. You said 6 months or 4 months.
yeah, I think at the time this was done, they were working off the detailed project plan that was generated in the fall.
Right.
So back at that point, I think we were suggesting that it was possible in an ideal world to have a low rate initial production by now.
Right.
But that would have had to be, a lot of other things had to happen. But so that was taking like the first of the year with the new design, going into the LRIP and all that. And obviously all those things didn't happen. So pick a time, I guess is what I'm saying.
My point is that's probably the biggest problem we had at the time. And you, I think, pointed that out, Kevin, that those numbers.
Right.
So therefore, actually, the window's closed, it's gone.
I think you're probably right, particularly when you see what you have on the line. But I must say that what Bogdan has done with Raster 3 incorporated all of the suggestions that were made by the fall group and this group here. And if a miracle happens, manna comes down from heaven, I think Raster 3 is going to be very good as well. So I'm hoping that works out, because I'd like one of those. And I'd like a line. So we're just going to have a whole rack full of SDRs. Yes, Skip?
Well,
Quickly.
we're running a little short on time here, so we need to wrap it up.
Thank you, sir.
Sorry.
That's all right.
Our next speaker will be Preston Osner. His first dish.
Okay, it's been a long morning, so if you need to stretch. Uh-oh, my wife's taking a picture of me stretching, so. Well, this morning I was put in the old codger category, so I didn't know it. I thought I was still 30, so I've been real deflated since that point. Anyway, you can build your first dish at any age. I got interested in radio astronomy when I read Frank Drake's book back in the early 70s, probably. And but I got busy with life, trying to make a living and, you know, building a career. And so it wasn't until I retired I actually started doing something in radio astronomy. So whatever age you are, if you want a dish, get your dish. That's
but you gotta have a wife that will let you do that.
Preston, which one do you
Is
want?
this personal experience, Gary?
You pick it.
Okay, let's see. Oh, either one, really. They're just different versions.
You need to figure out what to trade for the dish in the yard.
Yeah. There we go.
Right.
That'll work. Okay, I think I'm on page 134. If you follow my report in there, actually, 143. It's got a different name in there. I changed the name when I did this, and the presentation has more content in it than the paper does. The longer I wrote, the more I thought of. So, first of all, I want to give thanks to Jeff Lichtman and Carl Leister, Radio Astronomy Supplies, Robert Bryden, and SARA. I received help, advice, training, so from various of these people. So you can get the help you need. If you don't know something, there's always somebody ready to help. And okay, I did learn quite a bit, and I hope that what I learned will help somebody else to do their first dish. I'm sure all the old timers already know all this stuff. Anyway, there I am with my dish before the feed was installed. It's a 12-footer. The wide angle lens makes it look really big, which is great. Anyway, so I got the dish from a friend, and he's a professional dish installer. He was installing a bunch of these 12-footers like 10, 15 years ago, and he had the sections for the dish left in his warehouse. And so he sold it to me at what to me was a good price. And the sections were brand new, but the mount he had been laying outside and had some rust, so it had to be sanded, primed, and painted. And there it is, up on cinder blocks, and that's the way I worked on it. Okay, the mount was designed to be mounted on a pole now, and to use for commercial satellites. It was designed to swing freely in azimuth, but in elevation, you adjusted by taking a wrench and turning some nuts. Not very practical for what I was going to do with it. And it also only covered a very narrow range. So I wanted the mount, I needed to modify the mount so the azimuth would be fixed, pointed south, and it would move easily in elevation. So I basically needed to move the mount 90 degrees. And in order to do that, to set the elevation control to 90 degrees, a notch was cut into 1/4 inch steel to accomplish this goal. Now, there might have been some other way I could have done this, but that was the only way I saw it. The notch was cut with a cut-off disc on a grinder. The steel that was cut was not part of the main support steel, so it's never a good idea to cut your main support steel. Anyway, then I drilled a hole and put a stainless steel bolt in there so this setting was fixed at 90 degrees. Now the azimuth would be fixed and the elevation would move freely. The pole to hold the mount was 12 feet long and made of 1/4 inch steel. It was a surplus piece of seamless steam pipe. The hole for the pole was dug 5.5 feet deep using a post hole digger. I like to brag that I did that by hand. I mean, you know, through gray clay. So I don't know, manual labor makes me feel like I'm tough. So what can I say?
Did you lose 10 pounds digging that hole?
No. Fortunately for me, we'd had a rainy spring when I dug the hole, and so the gray clay was not hard as a brick. It usually is. Anyway, so the hole was 5.5 feet deep. The diameter hole is 3 times the diameter of the pole, and some literature suggested even a larger hole. The bigger the hole, the better, because you can fill it with concrete. So the more concrete you have, the better it's going to hold it down. So in order, and I got this idea from the professional that I purchased the dish from, that if you put a pole and you put concrete around it, sometimes it can spin a little on you. And if you've got a lot of wind on your dish, the pole could spin around a little. So near the bottom of the pole, we drilled a hole and put a piece of rebar horizontally in the pole. Then put the hole down in the pole, and that rebar would keep the pole from rotating. So anyway, so that describes that. Okay, so then I put the pole in the hole and aligned it vertically using a level. It was held in the vertical position by ropes and stakes. And I used quickcrete, mainly because it was quick. Anyway, I used the directions from their website. They said put a few inches of gravel in the bottom of the hole, and I did. Then I put several pieces of rebar vertically in the hole to strengthen the concrete. The quickcrete I poured in the hole and allowed it to harden and cure for about a month. I think the directions said a week or 2, but I didn't want to take any chances. Plus, it was a month before I could get around to working on it again. So, worked out great. My friend Bob Ryden, or Robert Ryden, who supplied the dish, I got him to assemble it for me. I'd never done it before, so I said, hey Bob, come on over, and he did, and he assembled it on a flat piece of ground. All the sections have to exactly line up, and the bolts have to be tightened that hold it together, but you don't want to tighten them so much that you actually bend that soft aluminum of the ribs of the dish. You don't want to bend it. So some guys get carried away, I know, with a wrench and just keep on tightening. So you have to be careful about that. Okay, he had designed a tool that after it was put together, he had a tool that consisted of a boat winch and a long steel pipe, and he clamped that onto my pole and was able to hoist by cranking that boat winch. He was able to hoist the dish up, and then on a ladder, I guided it onto the pole as he let it down. It was kind of a neat device. It was better than hiring a crane, you know, so it worked great, and he had used this tool when he installed a bunch of these for people. But watching him, I learned the process, learned how to do it right. Okay. Now, after it was down on the pole, of course, we tightened the bolts from rotating, the wind from coming around. But at a later date, I loosened those bolts so I could line it up. Now, I didn't write down the website where I got the information. I think it was like the Naval Observatory or something. But I found out what, from my area, what the correction should be for the compass, so the compass would read correctly. And so I set it up with a compass so that it pointed south. And I used the sun at, you can find out the time also on some of these websites, when the sun crosses the local meridian. And to check myself, I used the sun shadow to double check. I like to have, I learned in engineering school that you should always have two ways to work a problem. The second way, you check yourself, make sure that you did in fact get the right answer. So I'm fairly sure it's pointed south to the best of my ability anyway. Okay, my original plan was to use the radio astronomy supplies 1420 FH and with the choke. You can buy it with the choke. But on my particular dish, because L-band is so, its horn is wider diameter than the commercial satellite frequencies, I was not able to use the choke because I had to, if you separated the supports more, they missed the focal point. So rather than shortening those, I mean, I was modifying this dish. First time I didn't want to take a hacksaw to the mounts or anything, so I just didn't use the choke. Hadn't caused me any problems so far. Okay, there's a picture of the cylindrical feed horn that came from Radio Astronomy Supplies, and there it is mounted. It doesn't really look like that. The computer has done something to the photo. Anyway, it changed the aspect ratio because the horn is longer and slimmer than this. But that's all right. There's the horn mounted in the supports. Okay. Now I needed a feed horn cover. At my house there are lots of wasps, bees, and spiders. So whatever you leave outside, if you leave a tin can out there, something's going to live in it. So I didn't want them living in my feed horn. I didn't know what they would do to the reception, but I don't care much for them anyway. So I decided I had to have a cover. Now I didn't know what to use. I read several things. I read some amateur radio information. And I didn't really find out. I got some ideas, and I decided I wanted to do a test to determine what would make a good cover. Now I didn't have test equipment to test this at 1420, so I just decided to use my microwave oven. And even though it's a different frequency, I figured that if it heated up, I wouldn't use it. If it didn't heat up, well, there's a good chance it'd work. So it was kind of a rough test like that. So what I did was I got a bunch of materials together, like bowl covers, saran wrap, all this stuff. I got together and I started to test it. And the way I tested the microwave, I needed something to lay it on. And so I used a paper plate. Now a paper plate will heat up, but I used just a short time in the microwave, so the paper plate didn't have a time to heat up noticeably. Anyway, so, not really going on this. That's my second rule. Anyway, so if the plastic had carbon in it or trapped molecules or some kind of metal atoms or whatever, it would heat up. So the time I used, I think, was about 20 seconds. And in 20 seconds, that paper plate wouldn't heat up much. 30 seconds, it would. So my test, I think, was around there. Let's see, I'll get on. Okay, now here's a second rule I wanted to go by to choose the cover. I didn't want to use a material that was thick. I wanted it to be a very small fraction of a wavelength. And I picked up a book, I can't remember which one it was now, but they said a rule of thumb was 10%. And I think that's a misprint. To me, I don't want anything thicker than 1% of the wavelength, because I don't want it to bother it at all. So I don't know what you microwave guys use.
Depends on your frequency. If you're a very high frequency, like 23 or 38 gigahertz, it's hard to get that.
1%, right. Very good point. Okay, there we go. So anyway, I wanted it thin, 1%. Okay, so I checked several wave sites to find dielectric constants and loss tangents to see what might work, and the one I used was the RF Cafe. And according to these loss tangents, both polystyrene and polyethylene were had very low loss, and one of those should be suitable. The problem is that a lot of materials you find in local stores, they don't tell you what they're made out of. If you pick up a plastic bowl cover, what's it made out of? It doesn't say. Or at least I didn't find anything that said. So I did test some plastic bowl covers. One fit perfectly over the feed horn. It would have been ideal, I thought. But all bowl covers failed the test. A sheet of polystyrene gave the best result on the test. However, that sheet of hard polystyrene was hard to attach to the mouth of the feed horn. I tried one method and it failed. So I tried saran wrap, painter's drop cloths, mylar, trash bags. Everything heated up and rejected. Styrofoam was good, but it was too thick. I didn't want to use anything thick as styrofoam because that didn't meet my 1%. It just got a teeny bit warm in the microwave. I mean, some of that stuff would get hot enough to burn you in 20 seconds. So if something just barely heated, that seemed pretty good. So my feed horn cover is a piece of can liner. But hey, whatever works, right? Okay, the LNA I used was from Radio Astronomy Supplies, again, the 1420 HP. I used underground rated Cat 5e cable for control cable, and I decided to use that same type of cable to feed the LNA. If you use twisted cable, it kind of cancels out a lot of the interference. The thing is, I needed 18 gauge, so I used all 4 pairs. I used the 4 common wires tied together for one side of the power supply, and the other 4 wires tied together to the other side of the power supply. And that gave me the advantage of using those twists to be kind of resistant to picking up interference. And I already had the Cat 5e, so when I bought it, it was burial cable, had to buy 1,000 feet, so I used it for a lot of stuff. Okay, the LNA had to be weatherized in some way. They recommended building a little metal box, but when the dish tilted, I didn't see how that metal box was really going to protect it. So I went a different route. I had been warned that if you just use paint on it, it will not seal it sufficiently, that eventually paint will leak. And they had some fail that way. So what I did was cover the connectors with aluminum foil first to protect them, And then I painted the LNA with 2 coats of Rust-Oleum primer and let it dry after each coat. And then I encapsulated it multiple times with GE Supreme 100% silicone, sunproof, freeze-proof. Hopefully, so far for 6 months, I guess I've been operating about 6, 7, 8 months, it's lived up to its claims. Basically, it's caulking. So, I'll show you a picture of that in a minute. I don't know, there may be, I'm not saying they're not better solutions to what I did, but this is what I did and it worked for me. So, okay, here's the LNA, and it has been primed, and I took care to be sure I covered all the screws and where the plate attached and everything, any little crevice or screw was covered so that there'd be no leaks there. But I left the label uncovered for a while because I wanted to make sure I remembered where in and out was. You know, it's pretty important. Anyway, so there it is primed, and there it is encapsulated. It doesn't look like anything. Okay, before installation, the silicone was removed from the connectors along with aluminum foil, and after the connections were made, they were sealed with coax seal and then covered with the same type of silicone. The coax seal covered the connection itself, but past the connection, it carried the silicone past that coax seal, because it wouldn't stick good to the coax seal, but it stick good to the areas just past it. So anyway, after the connections, the seal was then covered the same type of silicone. After these steps and the LNA was installed, I covered it with yet another layer of silicone. And then I connected the LNA to the receiver using CA400 cable. CA400 is about the same as LM400. It's just by a different manufacturer. LM400 is recommended by a lot of people for this purpose. So, okay, so the same guy that I got the dish from, he had this actuator laying around, and so I got it from him too. The actuator that I used to move the dish in declination, elevation, it's only a matter of degrees. No difference there. Somebody talked about that in their talk the other day. Anyway, so I use this actuator. It's powered by a Hingfu 300W SA24 24-volt power supply that I obtained from MPJA. I don't know, I received a recommendation from here last year that MPJA was a good place to order stuff from. They're out of Florida, and I forget what it stands for.
Marlon P. Jones.
Marlon P. Jones and Associates, I guess. Anyway, they turned out to be pretty good. Got a reasonable price for that power supply. So I installed a bleeder resistor on it. It's a switching supply. I looked for a linear supply, and they cost a fortune. So I got a switching supply. I just located it a long way from any other equipment, you know, and it. So hopefully, you know, I don't get any interference from it to my knowledge. Okay, but I did put a bleeder resistor across it. I have heard that switching supplies, maybe this is older ones, but they don't like to see an open circuit. So I don't know if that's still true or not, but it used to be true lots of years ago. So I put a bleeder resistor across there. Also, it'll discharge any capacitors, because it does see an open circuit most of the time. Okay, so the power supply is located indoors, and I connected it to the pole by a UFB type underground cable. This is standard underground cable that an electrical supplier would use for underground circuits. It's 12 gauge times 2 plus ground. And the actuator is connected to the relay box by a pair of 12 gauge insulated stranded wires that I twisted together using an electric drill. I know that all of the old timers in here know that, you know, twisting wire together helps cut down on picking up interference. So the old electric drill does a good job of it, and that's something I learned a long time ago.
Cuts radiation of interference also.
Yes.
If you have a noisy source, twisted pair, it'll radiate less.
Mm-hmm. So that's what I did. Okay. Next. This is a picture of the actuator on the dish, and you can see the red and white twisted 12-gauge stranded coming down from it.
Where was that cut that you were talking about making with the angle grinder?
Well, you can't really see the cut from here, but you can see the pivot point right there for the dish. That used to be the azimuth, and that's the elevation. But it's back behind that, the piece that I worked on. Okay, this is a picture of the power supply. I decided to fuse both the positive and negative parts of the supply. Neither positive nor the negative is grounded, so I fused both sides just to play it safe. The relay box on the pole. I chose to use relays to control the actuator, so it'd be easier to add remote controls in the future if I want to. So I have two relays in there. One enables the thing and enables power to the actuator. The other chooses whether the tilt moves up or down. I did not produce a drawing of that I could show you, but it's not difficult. But if anyone wants to see it, I can draw it on the board afterwards. But at this time, I don't have a good application to do diagrams with. So, okay. So anyway, I built a small wired remote control box just using a toggle switch, a push button switch, and some Cat 5e cable. So I move it or empower it, give power just with the push button switch. And I flip the toggle switch. I don't flip the toggle switch when I'm holding the power down. I don't want the thing to get a shock. 10 minutes. I didn't realize. I thought I was going to be done in 15 minutes. I really did.
Much fun.
Yeah. Okay, there's a box on the pole for the relays. It's larger than what I needed, but I can do, it's got room for lots of growth. There's a small box on the right with the toggle switch and the push button switch in it, and a piece of Cat 5e runs that. So I've got a little wired remote control for the time being. Okay, underground conduit. I wanted to put everything underground so I'd be out of the way. So the power cable and the Cat 5e cables are rated for direct burial. The coax wasn't. I decided to put them in conduit. So I got some of this all dielectric or plastic liquid type conduit. I got two conduits, one 1 inch in diameter, one 3/4 inches diameter. According to city requirements, the conduits had to be buried 12 inches deep, so I dug a trench with a spade. Again, I'm proud of that. It makes me feel tough that I dug that trench. See, I am not an old geezer, regardless of what Tom says. Okay, before installation in trench, conduits were stretched out and pull strings installed. One string was pulled the standard way using a fish tape. And somebody told me, oh, don't bother with that. Just ball up a piece of paper, tie a piece of thread to it, and draw it through there with a vacuum cleaner. So yeah, I tried it. It worked. Of course, you take that thread and you pull a bigger string through there, and you use the bigger string to pull your cables. I pulled all the cables through at the same time. Pulled 3 cables at once. So one conduit has the coax, the Cat 5e feeding DC to the LNA, and a spare Cat 5e. And I didn't want to put the control cables in that same conduit, so I put them in a different conduit. I didn't want any chance of interference there. Of course, I don't use the dish while I'm moving it, so actually it might not have been a problem, but I decided to keep them separate. Okay, so that's what it says there. One holds the power cable and 2 Cat 5e and to use as control cables. Okay, and once this cabling was installed in the conduit was laid in the trench and covered with a layer of fine sand. That's good, especially if you have rocky soil. You don't want a sharp rock under pressure puncturing through your conduit at some point. So I covered with fine sand, then threw the dirt back in the trench. And I'll throw in a story here. Where's my wife? There she is. Yeah, she's telling me to hurry up. Okay. Anyway, when I laid the conduit in the trench, it wouldn't lay flat, so I had her stand on it while I threw dirt in there.
It didn't work, she wasn't happy.
Anyway, then I replaced the sod. There's the sod. The sod looks better than the grass around it. I had worked there so much I had to reseed what was left there because I destroyed it working on it. There's the completed dish. Okay. Now, the following graphs are just a small sample of data that I've gathered. The first one shows 3 different hydrogen clades, H1 clades, moving at different speeds. The second graph shows microwave oven interference, which is instructive if, in case you have a microwave. The interference is probably due to a side load, I figured out, because it doesn't happen at every angle of the dish. So I don't know what else it could be if it's not a side load. So anyway, here's the first one. To the right is blue shift, to the left is red shift, and they're the 3 hydrogen clades. One peak is clipped off. I lowered the gain by 1 dB after this so that they wouldn't be clipped. Here we have a small H1 peak to the left here. I probably should be pointing with something, but I'll say I can't reach it, but there it is right there. And to the right is microwave oven interference. So it's not ET. Okay, here's just 4 hydrogen clades. I don't know, different arms of the galaxy, just different clades, I don't know. But anyway, it's 4 clades, and they're all red shifted by different amounts. So they're moving at different speeds away from us. Here are 5 clades, and they're all red shifted. Okay, here we have 1 clade red shifted and 2 blue shifted. And more red and blue shift together. And here's just 1 clade, a nice peak. It's towards us. It might be moving sideways, but as far as towards us, away from us, it's almost stationary. And the width at the bottom is probably due to turbulence in the clade. So,
Would that be our arm, do you think?
I don't know. I haven't gotten into it far enough to, I know there are calculations you can do. Christ does them in his book, even that many years ago, and I've seen other books that do calculations, and I'm studying that, but I haven't learned it yet.
You need to get the right ascension declination. Right ascension's easy, it's a local sidereal time at your point of sound. Declination, is that 13 degrees from the horizon?
It's
from the horizon?
No, that's minus 13 degrees declination from the celestial equator,
okay.
yeah.
So you subtracted that from the zenith, from the latitude.
I don't know. I'll talk to you about it afterwards.
Okay, good.
And we'll find out if I did that right. Okay. Okay, let's see. Yeah. But that one is got some turbulence in it. Okay, here's some more red shifted. Some more red shifted. And that's all. Any questions? Besides time.
Comment, you may be able to lower your side lobes on your dish if you can figure a way to put that choke ring on there.
Yes.
That was its purpose.
Yeah, I will probably do that sometime in the future. I wanted to make sure it worked before I started sawing more things up.
The other thing I'd like to comment on is I'd like to compliment you on your mechanical design. It's much less sloppy than mine.
Thank you. Wow.
Two questions. First is, what is the sensitivity of this antenna and the receiver and everything from one end? The second is, what was the budget for?
What was the budget?
For the project?
Okay.
Can't say that.
That's
Well, let's see, what was it? Two questions. Remember, he said I was an old codger, so you have to ask one at a time. What was the first question?
Sensitivity.
Sensitivity. I have not tested it. I know that the LNA, I think, was 0.32 or 0.36 dB, somewhere, something like that. The receiver's Spectra Cyber that I won as a door prize one year, a couple of years ago, and I think there's another one out there today. So if your number's picked, that would be a fun thing to have. And as far as budget, since I already had the receiver, I probably spent on the dish and the cables and everything, I don't know, around $1,500. So, go ahead.
There's two questions actually. When your Cat 5e cable, when you did your twist, do you have a common on the signal with each twist? Is that how you?
Yeah, well, each pair has a common. So I use the common from each pair to go to one side. That way I'm using the twist of the pair. And I use the hots, if you want to call them that, to go to the other side. So so that the twists have effect that way. There are some ways you could use them, may not be as beneficial.
Preston, one last question. What did your neighbors think of this?
They said, this is okay, just don't call ET into my yard. That's what they told me, seriously.
Okay, when did Sue answer we had to be there for the 1 o'clock? What time do we have to be there for the GBT?
1 o'clock.
Okay, does everybody remember the GBT is going to be? Right. Now, right now I got 6 people for the GBT. 5. We only have 12 for the GBT. So 1 o'clock in front of the Science Center and 8 that.
No.